Chapter 1664. The Suicide Valley had become a world of ice and snow. Other than a small number of people, everyone else was sealed in ice and snow. Everything was silent, and everyone's eyes were either trembling in fear or shock. Even their breathing had slowed down, afraid that they would trigger Hao Tianwang's anger. From the beginning of the battle, he had been trembling as he hit on the Kuanpeng. He did not dare to show himself, nor did he dare to rashly participate in this battle. Looking at such a great battle, he suddenly realized how weak he was. He would usually show off in the righteous path, but now, he did not even dare to breathe loudly. Looking at those frozen people from afar, they were still in their charging posture, but they would probably bid farewell to this world soon. He was very glad that he and his father had made the right choice and made the right bet. Otherwise, those frozen people would have ended up like them, and it might be even worse. He ran out timidly and cheered, "Your Majesty is mighty, Your Majesty is mighty." The others also reacted and cheered loudly, "Your Majesty is mighty." King Wuling took a deep look at his father and could not help but sweat. The gap between him and his father was too big. He could not even completely defeat Xiao Bai. If not for his father, the sky might have really changed. King Wuling suppressed the hundreds of thoughts in his heart and also raised his arms and shouted, "Your Majesty is mighty." The Suicide Valley turned into a sea of cheers. Hao Tianwang looked at his subordinates and could not help but feel a little proud. The sky was his territory, and this was the fate of anyone who dared to resist or question him. His gaze swept past the frozen people one by one. It was like the most beautiful artwork in the world, pleasing to the eye. Of course, this was for Hao Tianwang. At this moment, he had a feeling that although he had stolen the sky for so many years, at this moment, he was the true master of this world. All the hidden dangers had been removed. Suddenly, his gaze shifted to a huge block of ice, and his pupils could not help but shrink. This block of ice was the one that sealed Tang Zheng in the beginning. Because it was too big and too thick, there was no way to see what was inside the ice. However, the shock on Hao Tianwang's face gradually turned serious. Everyone's eyes followed his and focused on the huge block of ice. Tang Zheng was sealed in a huge ice block, but he was not like the others who were unable to move. He activated his power and used his divine ability to preserve the last bit of space for himself, allowing him to move freely. However, he had no way of leaving this place. Even when the hidden profound sword hacked at the ice, it could not shake it much. Furthermore, every time he hacked off a part of the ice would immediately condense again. This repeated over and over again. The speed at which the ice was condensing always surpassed the speed at which he was destroying it, making him unable to completely break through. In the end, he simply stopped and stared blankly at the ice cubes around him. His heart seemed to have fallen into an ice cave and gradually turned cold. The ice block blocked his vision and even his divine sense, so he had no way of knowing what was happening in the outside world. However, he didn't need to think to know that the situation outside was definitely not optimistic. Without him, the leader of the dragons, the others were even less of a match for Hao Tianwang. What should I do? Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. He secretly warned himself that he could not sit still and wait for death. Thus, he racked his brains to think of a way to break through. He stared at the ice block with a burning gaze and muttered to himself, "All things reinforce and restrain each other. When soldiers arrive, they will block them. When water comes, the earth will block it. If I want to break this ice block of yours, I'll use fire." He focused and held his breath. He activated his power and stretched out his finger. A dot of light gradually flickered on his fingertip. However, in the next second, the dot of light disappeared as if it had never appeared. It completely disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng was shocked. He did not expect this to happen at all. Under this ice seal, even fire can't burn? Mutual reinforcement and restrain. This is the power of ice restraining fire, so there's no way to ignite fire. Xiao Bai's imperial family are experts who specialize in using fire. If Hao Tianwang wants to deal with the imperial family, he naturally has to find a way to restrain fire. In other words, this ice seal technique can restrain fire. That's why Hao Tianwang is so unrestrained. He must have considered the so-called mutual reinforcement and restrain problem long ago. When he thought of this, Tang Zheng's heart could not help but sink. However, he was not defeated by the cruel reality. Instead, his fighting spirit was aroused. Mutual reinforcement and restrain, why can't my heavenly fire restrain your ice block? He calmed his heart and frantically activated his power. Waves of true qi flowed in his meridians. There seemed to be flames jumping in his eyes. A blazing aura gathered from his entire body to his fingertip. Pa! As if lightning flashed, a ball of light flickered on his fingertip. This light was even more intense than the previous one. It flickered a few times, but the light did not extinguish like before. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He thought to himself that there was a way. He hurriedly activated his power. Immediately, the light on his fingertip shone brighter and brighter. Boom! The flame appeared and kept flickering on his fingertip. It gradually stabilized and became more and more vigorous. It soared into the sky and occupied this small space. Walala! The ice block melted and slowly flowed like a stream. Soon, the space became like a pool. The space became bigger and bigger, constantly expanding outwards. The layer of ice became thinner and thinner, and the red light of the flame gradually penetrated the layer of ice. From the outside, the eye-catching red could be vaguely seen. Hao Tianwang happened to see this scene, which was why he had such a big reaction. Immediately, he understood that things had changed. Moreover, he could clearly feel a blazing aura from the layer of ice. This was a terrifying blazing aura that he had never felt before. Even the late emperor could not do this. His heart was in turmoil. His face suddenly darkened, and he took action. I'd like to see what other tricks you have. Hao Tianwang once again used the art of ice sealing. Terrifying cold air surged out and shrouded the layer of ice in an instant. New layers of ice condensed. The others also realized that the situation had changed. They looked at the scene with shining eyes and felt relieved. With Hao Tianwang's attack, the other party would definitely not be able to jump up again. The layer of ice quickly thickened, and the flame was covered again. It gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone immediately heaved a sigh of relief. However, Hao Tianwang's expression did not become relaxed. Instead, it became unprecedentedly serious. Could there be another unforeseen event? Everyone looked at Hao Tianwang's expression and their hearts skipped a beat. They stared at the layer of ice and instantly widened their eyes. They could not believe what they had seen. The flame appeared again, and it became more and more dazzling. It was like the sun in the sky, quickly penetrating the layer of ice. Boom! With a loud sound, the ice block exploded. It soared into the sky and turned into countless fragments. However, it immediately melted into water and fell from the sky like a heavy downpour. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1665. A ball of flame soared into the sky, and the scorching heat enveloped the space as if a sun was right in front of them. Hao Tianwang and the others were shocked, staring straight at the tall figure that walked out from behind this ball of flame. You're not dead yet. Hao Tianwang stared at him with a burning gaze. Of course I'm not dead. Tang Zheng's voice came from behind the flames. His voice was not loud, but it was like a sudden clap of thunder, causing everyone's heartstrings to tremble. Tang Zheng walked straight out of the flames, but the blazing flames could not hurt him at all, as if he and the flames were one. Tang Zheng stood in the air, and behind him was a ball of blazing flames. It really was like a scorching sun was radiating light and heat behind him. This scene was too shocking, so much so that everyone could not move their eyes away. Additionally, the surging heat wave swept away the previous coldness. Although the air was scorching hot as if it was going to burn, the hearts of these people gradually became cold, as if pieces of ice were placed on their hearts. Hao Tianwang's expression also became complicated, and even interesting. His previously calm expression had long since disappeared. He was very clear about the power of his ice sealing technique, and firmly believed that this mystical power had already surpassed that of the imperial family in the past. Thus, he was confident and fearless. He even arrogantly thought that there was no person in the world, or rather, no flame, that could restrain his mystical power. However, reality was cruel. When the bloody reality was displayed in front of his eyes, he even had time to come back to his senses for a moment. To Hao Tianwang, this was something that was practically impossible. Tang Zheng looked around, and his gaze turned cold. He immediately discovered the other people who had been sealed in ice, and his expression was dark. Although he had long expected this scene, when he truly saw it, the fury in his heart still seemed to be about to erupt. Hao Tianwang, you're really ruthless. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth. These people's cultivation bases were not as high as his, so he didn't know if they were dead or alive. Therefore, he couldn't waste any time. He flicked his 5 fingers, and balls of flame flew out from the huge flame behind him and landed on the ice. Seeing this, how could Hao Tianwang just sit back and watch? He roared, "How dare you be so rash!" He casually waved his hand, and a surge of cold air chased after it. However, the heavenly fire was not afraid of the cold air at all. Instead, when the cold air approached, it was immediately burned away by the heavenly fire. When the heavenly fire landed on the ice, it immediately melted. Walala! Water dripped from the ice cubes like a waterfall, continuously dripping from the air. Hao Tianwang's heart trembled as he asked with an ashen face, "What kind of flame is this?" This was a type of flame that he had never seen before. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't figure out why this flame was so powerful. It had been proven that the heavenly fire had a restraining effect on Hao Tianwang's ice-sealing art. Tang Zheng was very glad. If it wasn't for the heavenly fire, he would really be in danger. Tang Zheng looked deeply at Hao Tianwang and said indifferently, "The heavenly fire." Hao Tianwang frowned. He had never heard of this kind of flame, so he felt that it was unusually unfamiliar. He asked, "What kind of flame is the heavenly fire?" Tang Zheng also knew that the heavenly fire was his own creation. It had fused many elements and was a product of coincidence. It was unique in the great wide world. Even if he told Hao Tianwang openly, he would definitely be confused. As expected, Hao Tianwang's reaction was as Tang Zheng had expected. Tang Zheng could not help but feel a little proud. He smiled and said, "I created it myself." "How does it feel?" "You created it yourself?" Hao Tianwang's heart skipped a beat. He found it hard to believe this reality. After all, Tang Zheng was only at the 7th grade of the Great Vehicle Realm, yet he could create such a heaven-defying heavenly fire that could easily restrain him. How could he not be surprised? The heavenly fire was so powerful that it had melted most of the ice on the other people's bodies. Hao Tianwang saw this and was anxious. The others looked at each other. For a moment, they did not know what to do. Heavenly fire, do you think you can save them with this? Wishful thinking. Hao Tianwang flew into a rage and snorted disdainfully. A wave of cold air erupted from his body, and ice swords appeared beside him. In an instant, thousands of ice swords appeared around him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The ice swords flew toward those people at lightning speed. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright and roared, "Don't even think about succeeding." Boom! The flames behind him rose into the air and chased after those ice swords. The sky seemed to be burning, and a blazing aura enveloped the ice swords. The ice swords instantly turned into steam. Roar! Hao Tianwang roared deafeningly, "You're courting death." Whoosh! He ignored those people and attacked Tang Zheng directly. A bone-piercing chill instantly enveloped Tang Zheng. The heavenly fire surrounded Tang Zheng like a barrier shield, protecting him. Hao Tianwang ignored the threat of the flames and slapped his palm. A pair of flesh hands, seemingly without any ice, actually slapped directly into the flames. There was a crackling sound, but the pair of flesh palms still passed through the flames intact and hit Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng wanted to resist, but found that he had been firmly locked and could not dodge. This was beyond Tang Zheng's expectations. He did not expect that under the threat of the heavenly fire, Hao Tianwang could launch such a terrifying counterattack. Hao Tianwang was indeed unfathomable. Although he had the heavenly fire, it was unrealistic to rely on this move to suppress Hao Tianwang. Bang! The palm slapped fiercely on Tang Zheng's body. At the last moment, he could only mobilize all the power in his body and do his best to build a defense. After a muffled sound, this defense immediately collapsed. Before Tang Zheng could react, a vast and terrifying power swept over like a tide, like a huge wave that was about to hit him to the bottom of the sea. Pfft! He spat out a mouthful of blood. The terrifying power was about to destroy his body and tear him into pieces. Tang Zheng! A cry of alarm rang out. Then, one after another, cries of alarm rang out. They all shouted, Tang Zheng. It turned out that those who had been sealed had already regained their freedom, but when they saw Tang Zheng in danger at first glance, their hearts almost jumped out of their throats. Hearing these cries of alarm, Hao Tianwang knew very well what had happened, but he did not care. The most important thing now was to eliminate Tang Zheng. As long as he was dead, there would be no threat of the heavenly fire, and the others were not worth mentioning. Therefore, he had to concentrate all his strength to kill Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng felt that his body was about to be torn apart, but he did not accept his fate. He gritted his teeth and looked at Hao Tianwang, who was close at hand. He stretched out his trembling hand and growled, sky-swallowing technique. His palm was aimed at Hao Tianwang. Before Hao Tianwang could understand what was going on, a huge and irresistible attractive force suddenly erupted and completely enveloped him. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1666. The sky-swallowing skill was unleashed, and it was a terrifying sky-swallowing skill. Heavenly King Hao was a man who knew what was good for him. He immediately understood the predicament he was facing. His face tightened, and he could not wait to ask, "What are you doing?" Tang Zheng did not answer because he had no time to be distracted and did not have the energy to answer his question. A black light flashed, and a black hole appeared in front of Hao Tianwang out of thin air. The terrifying power that could devour everything made Hao Tianwang want to dodge. In the past, no matter what threat or attack he faced, he could charge forward and meet it head-on. However, he could not do it this time. The terrifying pressure and psychological trauma caused by the black hole made him a little breathless. Roar! Heavenly King Hao let out a roar. Thick ice walls appeared in front of him, blocking the black hole and his line of sight like the walls of a fortress. It seemed that this was the only way his heart could calm down slightly. However, boom! After an explosion, things did not go as planned. The ice walls collapsed, and Hao Tianwang was completely exposed to the black hole again. Moreover, he was getting closer to the black hole step by step. Although he tried his best to resist and retreat, the terrifying power completely enveloped him. It seemed that it would not stop until it reached its goal. He immediately remembered the sky-devouring technique that Tang Zheng had shouted. He was shocked and said, "Can this divine ability really devour the sky?" He was equivalent to the sky of this sky beyond heaven. If the black hole could devour him, did that not mean that it could really devour the sky? If Tang Zheng knew what he was thinking, he would definitely scoff. The power of the sky-devouring technique was more than that. If it could only devour him, it would not be called the sky-devouring technique. Hao Tianwang was flustered, and Tang Zheng was much more relaxed. Their positions were reversed, and Hao Tianwang was facing greater danger. How could Hao Tianwang sit still and wait for death? He stretched out his hand, and a force of attraction grabbed a few of his subordinates. They did not have the strength to resist at all and fell into Hao Tianwang's hands. "Ah, Your Majesty, what are you doing?" These people lost their heads out of fear, shouting and screaming. Hao Tianwang snorted coldly and said, "It's time for you to show your sincerity." Ah! All of them were scared out of their wits. How could they not understand Hao Tianwang's intentions? This method of expressing loyalty was too cruel. It was actually throwing away their own lives. However, not many people were willing, and they all began to scream. This was a stark contrast to the fearless actions of the shamans and the others previously. It was obvious who was better. This was like a slap that fiercely struck Hao Tianwang's face, causing him to lose a great deal of face. He was furious, and his killing intent surged, so he didn't feel the slightest bit of pity. Whoosh! Whoosh! One by one, his subordinates streaked through the air, and then they all flew into the black hole. This was Hao Tianwang taking the initiative to divert the trouble, letting his subordinates become cannon fodder to attract the sky-devouring technique. Then, he would take the opportunity to escape the attack of the sky-devouring technique. Hao Tianwang's wishful thinking was very good. He used the lives of others in exchange for his own life. Even if these people were his subordinates, he did not feel the slightest bit of pressure. As long as he could ensure his own safety, that was the most important thing. One by one, the cannon fodder was swallowed by the black hole, turning into wisps of pure energy and being sucked into the heaven realm. It was precisely because of this change that Hao Tianwang finally found a chance to get lucky. He desperately activated his power and struggled to escape the attraction of the sky-devouring technique. Hao Tianwang's eyes lit up. With a whoosh, he flew far away and hid on the other side of the Kunpeng, far away from Tangzheng. He had experienced the power of the sky-devouring technique once, and he did not want to try it a second time. Just now, he had been careless and suffered from the sky-devouring technique. This time, he believed that he would definitely not be so easily defeated. His judgment was very correct. After the sky-devouring technique swallowed the cannon fodder, when Tangzheng aimed at Hao Tianwang again, he was far away, and there were other people and the incomparably huge Kunpeng in the middle. It was not so easy for him to lock onto Hao Tianwang. Tangzheng's head sank. He could not help but feel a little disappointed and regretful. He did not succeed in taking down Hao Tianwang in one fell swoop. It would be difficult for him to have such an opportunity again. However, he was not discouraged. After all, he had walked through the gates of hell. At the last moment, he was forced to use the sky-devouring technique to resist and successfully escape. This had already achieved his goal. The black hole floated in front of Tangzheng and aimed in the direction of Hao Tianwang. It was like a terrifying killing machine, causing Hao Tianwang to be cautious. The other subordinates scattered like birds and beasts, not daring to approach Tangzheng. They wanted to stay as far away from the black hole as possible. Tangzheng did not use the sky-devouring technique with all his might. The black hole remained stable, and the attraction force decreased sharply. This was because once he used the highest level of the sky-devouring technique, not only would Hao Tianwang's people be sucked in, even the shamans and the others would not be able to escape. The sky-devouring technique was an indiscriminate attack, and was a true killing weapon. Unless he had no other choice, he did not want to use the sky-devouring technique. Pairs of eyes stared at Tangzheng in shock. Seeing that he did not take any further action, they could not help but mutter in their hearts. Hao Tianwang seemed to be rough and ruthless, but in reality, he was very meticulous. Gradually, he discovered some clues, and his heart lit up. He deliberately probed, "Your so-called sky-devouring technique is only a so-so. You want to trap me? Dream on." Tangzheng did not expect that Hao Tianwang would still have such blind confidence in the face of reality. He said, "Hao Tianwang, be careful of your tongue when you talk big. Since you are not afraid of my sky-devouring technique, why are you running? In fact, you even killed your own people." Hao Tianwang's expression did not change, but the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. He said, I was just testing its power. Now it seems that it's only so-so. If you really have so much confidence in this so-called sky-devouring technique, why don't you continue to use it? Since you have such a request, I will fulfill your wish. Tang Jing deliberately took a step forward, and the black hole also moved forward. The others were so scared that they all retreated. Hao Tianwang's legs also trembled slightly, as if he wanted to retreat, but in the end, he held himself back. His pupils constricted as he stared at Tang Jing. Suddenly, Hao Tianwang noticed that Tang Jing's gaze swept past the witch race and the others, and a hesitant expression appeared on his face. Immediately, Hao Tianwang seemed to be deep in thought. He suddenly came to a realization and laughed loudly. Ha ha ha, I understand. Your sky-devouring technique is only so-so. So you are afraid that others will be sucked in as well. He finally understood why Tang Jing did not chase after him. It was because the power of the sky-devouring technique was too great, but it had a shortcoming, and that was that it attacked indiscriminately. Once it was truly used, other than Tang Jing, who would not be sucked into the black hole, the others would not be able to escape. Hao Tianwang seemed to have discovered a new continent and was extremely excited. Since that was the case, there was no need to be so afraid of the sky-devouring technique. Because, with others around, Tang Jing would not be able to use it so recklessly, and he would have an opportunity to take advantage of it. You're destined to be a loser if you're too soft-hearted. Hao Tianwang sneered. In an instant, he regained his momentum and shot forward like a rainbow. Was Tang Jing soft-hearted? Of course not. He would not kill his own people. He was not as cruel and despicable as Hao Tianwang. Chapter 1667. Hao Tianwang saw through Tang Jing's shortcoming, and his morale quickly rose. He puffed out his chest, and as if he was elated, he stared at the group of people who had been unsealed and ordered his subordinates with a livid face, charge up and get rid of them all. As long as the battle between the two sides fell into chaos and came into contact with each other, Tang Jing would not dare to rashly use the sky-swallowing technique to avoid accidentally injuring his own people. Hao Tianwang grasped this point and immediately came up with a countermeasure. The others also came to a sudden realization, and their previous fear was replaced with eagerness. If he didn't want to be sucked away by the terrifying black hole, then he had to engage in a fierce battle with his opponent. That way, his chances of survival would be greater. After Hao Tianwang gave the order, none of them disobeyed it. Instead, they rushed towards their opponents with murderous intent. Tang Jing secretly thought that it was cunning. He could not protect everyone, but he would not sit still and wait for death. With a swoosh, the hidden profound sword flew straight into the enemy. Puff! Puff! Streams of blood splashed out, and many enemies fell under the hidden profound sword. However, their attacks were limited, and it was impossible for them to defeat all the enemies with one strike. Many of them had already rushed to the front of the sorcerer tribe. The battlefield fell into chaos again. The sorcerer tribe and the others had been sealed and escaped from death. They had been affected quite a bit and their fighting power had been greatly reduced. Facing the aggressive and numerous enemies, they were no longer as brave as before. Many of them had fallen in front of the enemies. Tian Chanzi fought and retreated at the same time. His heart was burning with anxiety. His strength was one of the best among the group, but when facing the enemy, he felt powerless, let alone the others. The situation was not optimistic. Tang Jing also saw this and shouted anxiously, Hao Tianwang, you want to use this method to make me hesitate to shoot the rat for fear of breaking the vases. You're really wishful thinking. If you want to be a coward, then I'll see how long you can hide. Whoosh! Tang Jing looked at Hao Tianwang from afar. His figure flashed, and he attacked him aggressively. After witnessing the power of the sky-swallowing technique, Hao Tianwang didn't dare to approach Tang Jing again, lest he be struck by the sky-swallowing technique again. Whether or not he would be so lucky next time was still unknown. Therefore, he hurriedly retreated, not giving Tang Jing a chance to get close to him. He also deliberately hid behind the crowd, so that it would not be easy for Tang Jing to lock onto him. Treacherous! Tang Jing gnashed his teeth in hatred, but there was nothing he could do. The destructive power of the sky-swallowing technique was too great, and it attacked indiscriminately. It was easy to accidentally injure one's own people. Roar. Tang Zheng faced the sky and let out a long roar. It sounded like the roar of a dragon. There was an indescribable aura about it. Hao Tianwang's pupils constricted as he heard the profound meaning behind this howl. Tang Zheng's body burst out with a golden light, and golden scales gradually grew on his body. It was as if he was wearing a golden battle suit. Whoosh! He turned into a beam of golden light and flew towards Heavenly King Hao. His speed was extremely fast, and he did not use the hidden sword at all. The others also avoided him in fear, especially because of the terrifying dragon might emanating from his body, which made people respect him. Hao Tianwang's eyes flashed with a strange color. He said in surprise, "You are related to the Dragon Clan?" Hao Tianwang was not familiar with the Dragon Clan, but he knew that it was a very powerful clan. When he saw Tang Zheng's identity, he couldn't help but be shocked, and his face became serious. Seeing Tang Zheng flying toward him, Hao Tianwang quickly retreated behind the Kunpeng and let out a strange howl. Tang Zheng, who was flying at high speed, saw darkness in front of him, as if a wall had appeared in front of him without warning. He had to stop, but it was still too late. He hit the wall heavily. Boom! Amidst the earth-shattering sound, Tang Zheng was bounced back, as if he had encountered an extremely elastic obstacle. All of the force was bounced back onto his body. This power was too great, no less than the weight of Mount Tai. All the bones in his body creaked loudly, as if they were about to fall apart. One had to know that his chaotic Vajra spell had already been cultivated to the indestructible realm. His bones were even harder than steel, but they were still on the verge of falling apart. This is all my power. Tang Zheng quickly reacted, his eyes wide open as he stared at the wall-like obstacle in front of him. This was actually the Kunpeng. From the very beginning, the Kunpeng had not made any movements at all. Who would have thought that its strength would be so strong that it could completely counterattack Tang Zheng's attack? Just this point alone, Tang Zheng did not know who else could do this, and it was so effortless. He looked at the Kunpeng in shock, and gradually saw some clues. The Kunpeng's entire body swelled up like airbags, no wonder it could reflect his attacks. He was a little uncertain about the Kunpeng's strength, and for a moment, he did not dare to advance rashly. Hao Tianwang hid behind the Kunpeng, fearless, and laughed sinisterly. "I want you to watch them all die. This feeling must be very special, you can slowly experience it." Tang Zheng's heart trembled, he suddenly turned his head to look at the others. The battle was getting more and more intense, it had already reached the climax. There were casualties on both sides, most of them were covered in wounds, they were in a sorry state. But without a doubt, the ones who had the advantage were Hao Tianwang's subordinates. Not only did they have the advantage in numbers, they also had the advantage in cultivation, forcing the Witch clan and the others to retreat step by step. The others also caught a glimpse of Tang Zheng's encounter, especially the scene of the Kunpeng making a move, which made them turn pale with fright. The Kunpeng only gently raised a part of its body, like a natural barrier that could not be broken through, causing Tang Zheng's attack to disappear without a trace. What kind of sacred art was this? It actually had such divine power. When the red lunar beast and the patriarch saw this scene, they were greatly shocked. The patriarch turned pale with fright and shouted, "Be careful of the Kunpeng, its sacred art is to give you a taste of your own medicine." Giving you a taste of your own medicine. Everyone immediately understood the mystery, they could not help but be greatly shocked, there was actually such a sacred art in the world. The Kunpeng did not have the ability to directly attack, but it had the ability to reflect all attacks. No matter how fierce the enemy's attack was, it could completely reflect it back, and it would not be hurt. The patriarch and the red lunar beast looked at the Kunpeng with a complicated expression, it was thought-provoking. The two of them gritted their teeth, the patriarch said hatefully, "Hao Tianwang, back then, you only spared the Kunpeng's life. I don't know why the Kunpeng was bewitched, it actually submitted to you, this is a betrayal to the royal family." It turned out that the Kunpeng was actually an ancient creature, it was even older than the patriarch and the red lunar beast. In the history of the royal family, the Kunpeng had always been with them. Furthermore, the Kunpeng had an extremely long lifespan, this Kuanpeng had accompanied countless of the royal family. It could be said that it had witnessed the rise and fall of the royal family. He really did not know why the Kuanpeng would submit to Hao Tianwang. Chapter 1668. Heavenly King Hao had mixed feelings when he heard the words of the patriarch and the red lunar beast. He looked at the Kuanpeng with a thoughtful expression. Why didn't Hao Tianwang kill the Kuanpeng? Why did he spare its life even though he knew that it was related to the royal family? Was Hao Tianwang really merciful? Of course not. Did the Kuanpeng submit to Hao Tianwang? That was not the case either. The Kuanpeng was a unique existence. That was the conclusion that Hao Tianwang came up with after pondering for a long time. He had always wanted to study the Kuanpeng thoroughly but had not gained much. The Kuanpeng had witnessed the rise and fall of the royal family. Furthermore, the Kuanpeng was a symbol of the royal family for a long time. As for the origin of the Kuanpeng, no one knew about it. At least, from Hao Tianwang's experience and information, no one knew about it, not even the royal family. This was very thought-provoking. Hao Tianwang wanted to study the Kuanpeng thoroughly, so he spared its life. In fact, he had no choice but to spare the Kuanpeng's life. The Kuanpeng could not take the initiative to attack, but it could reflect all attacks. Hence, there was no way to kill the Kuanpeng. What kind of magical existence was it? Even if one hated it and wanted to kill it immediately, one could only stare at it helplessly. Hao Tianwang had been troubled and helpless before, but in the end, he accepted the reality. Of course, it was also because the Kuanpeng could not take the initiative to attack and could not threaten Hao Tianwang that he gave up on it. As time passed, the Kuanpeng seemed to have merged with Hao Tianwang. The Kuanpeng was willing to cooperate with him. For example, it could be used as a transportation tool. For example, it even turned into a shield to protect Hao Tianwang after Hao Tianwang ordered it to do so. The patriarch and the red lunar beast knew some of the Kuanpeng's characteristics. After saying those words in exasperation, they immediately realized that Hao Tianwang did not spare the Kuanpeng's life on purpose. He could not kill the Kuanpeng at all. But there was one thing that they couldn't wrap their heads around. Why would the rock listen to this traitor, Hao Tianwang? Hao Tianwang suppressed the complicated thoughts in his heart and sneered, "A wise man submits to circumstances. Kuanpeng is a smart creature. How can you stubborn guys be compared with it?" The patriarch and the red lunar beast were even angrier. Tang Jing stared at the Kuanpeng intensely, as if he wanted to see through it. In the end, he had no choice but to give up. However, he understood something in his heart. No wonder Xiao Bai's mother only described the Kuanpeng to others after she went to the human world. The Kuanpeng was indeed very magical, even more so than the ancestor and the red moon beast. The Kuanpeng blocked the attack for Hao Tianwang. Tang Zheng was curious whether the Kuanpeng could block the attack of the sky-swallowing technique. After all, the attack of the sky-swallowing technique was different from other attacks. Hao Tianwang proudly hid behind Kuanpeng and loudly commanded, "Everyone, listen to my order. Kill these guys. Roar! 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 Roar!" Everyone seemed to be very excited. With the increase in their combat power, the witches and the others were in a more difficult situation. Tang Zheng was very anxious. Looking at the battlefield in full swing, a deep sense of helplessness shrouded his heart. The patriarch gradually lost hope. His side did not have a chance to win, but they definitely could not be wiped out. Moreover, the emperor's life was uncertain. In a hurry, he said, "Tang Zheng, quickly go to the flower fruit mountain to save the emperor. Leave this place. We can't all die here." The patriarch was prepared to sacrifice himself, but he did not completely give up. Even if he had to give up his life, he had to save some people, especially the emperor. He believed that the emperor would not die so easily, because the emperor was a member of the royal family. The emperor had his own mission. Tang Jing moved his head and lowered his head to look at the flower fruit mountain. The smoke that filled the air had dissipated, and he could vaguely see the scenery on the flower fruit mountain. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's pupils constricted. He seemed to have discovered something unusual, and his expression changed greatly. The others were struggling to deal with the enemy, but only Hao Tianwang noticed Tang Zheng's strange expression. His heart trembled, and he followed Tang Zheng's gaze. When his gaze fell on the flower fruit mountain, he could not help but reveal a suspicious expression. Hao Tianwang did not notice anything strange. Then why was Tang Zheng's reaction so big? What did he see? Hao Tianwang muttered in his heart, but he did not know what to do. He only saw that Tang Zheng's brows were tightly knitted together, and he was extremely solemn. Tang Zheng's gaze was firmly fixed on a point on the flower fruit mountain, a point that was very deep in his memory. The flower fruit mountain was already in a mess. The stream had stopped flowing, but there was one thing that was not damaged: the mysterious stone that stood at the edge of the stream. This stone was a heaven and earth Xian stone, and there was no way to store it in Sumra heaven. The hidden Xian sword did not leave a single mark on it. The stone was so mysterious, so it was natural that it was not damaged. But why was Tang Zheng so shocked? Because this stone had actually grown taller, and not just a little bit. Hao Tianwang did not pay attention to this stone at first, so naturally he did not notice its changes. What happened to the stone? Tang Zheng was puzzled. In addition, Xiao Bai's figure was also nowhere to be found. Although he did not know what was going on, Tang Zheng decided to go down and find out. Thus, his figure flashed, and like a meteor from outer space, he flew towards the stone. Seeing this, Hao Tianwang did not know what was going on, but he still followed his intuition and shouted, "Stop!" How could Tang Zheng stop? Instead, he sped up. Just as he was about to reach the stone, suddenly, a ray of light shot out from the stone. The entire stone was enveloped in light. Tang Zheng was stunned. He did not understand why the stone had changed again. Hao Tianwang's eyes were cold. Obviously, he was deeply shocked by the light. Suddenly, in the next second, Hao Tianwang's eyes widened. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out, shaking the mountains and shaking the earth. A powerful shockwave soared into the sky, and all the people who were still fighting in the air were completely affected by this shockwave. They were sent flying in all directions, and they were all in a mess, battered and exhausted. No matter how strong or weak one's cultivation was, no one was spared. Even Tang Zheng and Hao Tianwang were the same. Both of them flew towards the stone. As they were the closest to the stone, they naturally suffered the most from the shockwave. Fortunately, both of them had the highest cultivation. Otherwise, the shockwave alone would have been enough to take their lives and cut them into pieces. Tang Zheng was sent flying like a kite. This was even more painful than when he was attacked by the Kuanpeng. His bones were creaking non-stop, and he was really on the verge of collapsing. He glanced at Hao Tianwang, who was not far away. Hao Tianwang's face was pale, and his situation was not much different from his. Chapter 1669. The mountain of flowers and fruit had changed greatly. It had been razed to the ground, and even the rock had disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that the huge explosion was caused by the rock, but how could the rock explode? After all, that was a heaven and earth black stone that even the mysterious concealed sword could not leave behind the slightest trace. Hao Tianwang's attention also shifted to the mountain of flowers and fruit, and only now did he finally see some clues. The towering rock had disappeared. Before this, his attention was not on the rock at all, but after comparing it before and after, he keenly found some clues. Could it be that the explosion was caused by that rock? The others were rushed in all directions and did not have the time to care about themselves. They were not like Tang Zheng and Hao Tianwang, who had the time to notice the changes in the mountain of flowers and fruit. The two of them were deeply attracted by the abnormality of the mountain of flowers and fruit. Suddenly, the two pairs of eyes narrowed as they saw the same thing at the same time. This thing was covered under the rubble. It was a tail that was raised high up in the air, and the surrounding rocks were all knocked over, gradually revealing the original appearance of the rock. Tang Jing stared at it without blinking, a trace of curiosity and anticipation appearing on his face. Hao Tianwang's expression was very ugly. Bang! With a loud sound, the rubble flew up, shocking Hao Tianwang to the point that his heartstrings trembled. The rubble flew, and a figure soared into the air from the ground. The rubble surrounded him, and with a sweep of his tail, the rubble flew in all directions like arrows that were as fast as thunder. A light screen immediately lit up in front of Tang Zheng and Hao Tianwang, and the rubble fiercely hit the light screen, producing a series of muffled sounds. Tang Zheng opened his eyes wide, staring straight ahead. After the rubble flew away, he finally saw the figure clearly. It was actually a completely unfamiliar figure, and it was actually a monkey. This. Tang Zheng was stunned. He did not understand what was going on. He thought it was Xiao Bai, but now it seemed that it was not him at all. Where did this monkey come from? Just as Tang Zheng was feeling bewildered, Hao Tianwang's eyes were filled with disbelief. He exclaimed in shock, "Stone monkey, so the legend is true." Tang Zheng's ears twitched and he immediately locked onto Hao Tianwang. He hurriedly asked, "Stone monkey? What legend?" Hao Tianwang's face was pale as he stammered. For a moment, he couldn't say anything. "Ha ha ha, the royal ancestors are protecting us. The legend is actually true." Suddenly, the ancestors' wild laughter rang out, full of joy. Many pairs of eyes were focused on the patriarch ancestor and Hao Tianwang. Even King Wuling and the Red Moon Beast did not understand what was going on. In the ancient times, there was a legend in the realm beyond heaven. The ancestor of the royal family was born from a divine stone, and he turned into a stone monkey when he was exposed to the wind. Later on, he comprehended the 72 transformation techniques and cultivated a supreme divine ability, thus unifying the realm beyond heaven and becoming the royal family, the ancestor said excitedly, unable to hide the waves in his heart. Tang Zheng was shocked. There was actually such a legend in the royal family, but he had never heard Xiao Bai or the Red Moon Beast mention it. The Red Moon Beast was also dumbfounded. He quickly asked, "Why don't I know about it? Other than the late emperor and empress, only I and this traitor know about it." The ancestor sighed. Back then, the ancestor and Hao Tianwang were the guardians. They knew many secrets that others did not know about, and this legend about the royal family was one of them. Everyone immediately understood. They stared at the stone monkey. Tang Zheng hesitated, and said, "Is he Xiao Bai?" The ancestor nodded, and Hao Tianwang was silent. Although he did not know what kind of opportunity caused all of this to happen, this stone monkey was undoubtedly Xiao Bai. It was just his transformation. Xiao Bai. After getting a definite answer, Tang Zheng could not wait and shouted loudly, "Master!" The stone monkey jumped onto Tang Zheng's shoulder and hugged his head, just like in the past, intimately. Tang Zheng smiled dejectedly. The word "master" and the familiar action showed that the stone monkey was Xiao Bai. He gently touched its smooth fur and asked, "Xiao Bai, what is going on?" Xiao Bai laughed mischievously, "Master, all of this is a coincidence. The 4 symbols, me, and that mischievous rock are the ones that caused all of this." Tang Zheng looked at him curiously. The others also pricked up their ears. Even Hao Tianwang temporarily stopped his attack and stared at Xiao Bai with complicated eyes. He wanted to understand the mystery behind all of this. Xiao Bai talked non-stop. "I fell on Flower Fruit Mountain and was covered in injuries. My blood dyed the ground red, and it also flowed onto the mischievous rock. After that, the 4 symbols landed on the mountain, as if they were a key that quietly triggered this switch. I merged with the mischievous rock, and my injuries were also healed in a short time. Finally, he broke out of the rock." So that was how it was. Everyone suddenly realized that this was truly a coincidence. The mischievous rock, Xiao Bai, and the 4 symbols were all indispensable. Without any one of them, it would not have been possible to achieve all of this. Xiao Bai looked at Hao Tianwang in ridicule, and said, "If it wasn't for a traitor like you who schemed to kill us, we wouldn't have discovered the secret." Schwa. Everyone looked at Hao Tianwang in unison. It was really as Xiao Bai had said. Hao Tianwang was the center of attention, and he was so regretful that his intestines turned green. What was wrong with him? He had to come to this suicide valley to encircle and annihilate this group of people. If he went to other places, there would definitely be no such thing. Wasn't this just shooting himself in the foot? It was so painful. When the ancestor heard this, he felt that he had vented his anger and said, "Your Majesty, this is the spirit of the imperial family's ancestors. They are protecting your Majesty." This traitor thought that victory was in his hands, but he didn't know that he was completely wrong. Now that your Majesty has many divine abilities and 72 transformations, this traitor is no longer your match. Xiao Bai's heart skipped a beat, but there was no reaction on his face. Instead, he walked step by step towards Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang's expression changed. He anxiously pushed his hands forward and stopped him. "Stop, you are not allowed to move forward." Xiao Bai turned a deaf ear to him and sneered, "Hao Tianwang, didn't you want to kill me? I'm standing right in front of you, let's see how you can kill me." Every time Xiao Bai took a step forward, Hao Tianwang would take a big step back. This scene caused the others to tremble in fear and their eyelids to twitch. Hao Tianwang's subordinates were all dejected and ashamed. Their king was actually so cowardly, they wished they could find a hole to hide in. However, they were even more perturbed. With such an unforeseen event, the scales of victory and defeat had already tilted. On the contrary, the patriarch and the others were elated. They swept away their previous depression and cheered for him. Tang Jing did not say a word, his eyes were bright and full of expression. He stared at Xiao Bai without blinking, his face revealing a serious expression, as if he was deep in thought. If one were to talk about who understood Xiao Bai the most among the people present, it would undoubtedly be Tang Jing. Chapter 1670. Although Xiao Bai was glaring at Hao Tianwang like a tiger watching its prey, only Tang Jing could tell that Xiao Bai was bluffing. His strength might not be able to defeat Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang was momentarily stunned by the huge change just now and did not notice this clue, so he was attacked by Xiao Bai and retreated step by step. The more he retreated, the more powerful Xiao Bai's aura became, as if it really overshadowed Hao Tianwang. Boom! With a shocking explosion, another change occurred on Huagua Mountain. Huagua Mountain became towering into the clouds and became like a person. The four symbols. Everyone immediately recognized it. Wasn't this the four symbols? Tang Zhang's heart skipped a beat. He had actually forgotten to ask Xiao Bai about the four symbols just now. Now that he saw the four symbols appear, he truly heaved a sigh of relief. Everything about the four symbols added another heavy chip to the already tilted scales. Hao Tianwang's subordinates cried out in alarm, especially when they saw the tall bodies of the four symbols rise from the ground and cover the sky, completely blocking the sunlight above their heads. They also retreated quickly like Hao Tianwang. They were weaker than Hao Tianwang, so they were naturally more afraid of this scene. King Wuling gritted his teeth and shouted loudly to stop his subordinates from retreating. However, Hao Tianwang was also retreating. King Wuling could not stop all of this at all. Bang! Hao Tianwang crashed into the Kunpeng's body and only then did he stop. He looked at Xiao Bai in surprise and said, "Your royal family actually has such a method. I really misjudged you." Xiao Bai said in a deep voice, "How can a traitor like you completely understand the royal family's foundation? Let's see what other methods you have now. Use them all." Xiao Bai was full of vigor. Hao Tianwang was already feeling guilty, so he didn't dare to act rashly. He lowered his eyes, as if he didn't dare to look at Xiao Bai. When Xiao Bai approached again, Hao Tianwang finally couldn't take it anymore. He looked at the four symbols again. The four symbols was also strange. It was actually one of the three conditions. He couldn't figure it out at all. Previously, he was already subdued by the divine ability of the four symbols, and now, he was even more unable to see through the truth of the four symbols. He hesitated for a long time before finally gritting his teeth and saying, "Retreat. Retreat." It was a simple word, but everyone had different reactions and feelings. King Wuling looked at Hao Tianwang in disbelief and shouted, "Father, why are we retreating? It's better to eliminate this group of people in one go." Hao Tianwang's gaze was cold as ice as he said in a dignified manner, "Carry out my orders." King Wuling was helpless. Although he had thousands of words to say, he couldn't argue. He replied resentfully, "Yes." Among the others, there were those who didn't understand, but there were also those who couldn't wait to escape. Whether it was because they had no choice or because they couldn't wait, they all retreated. One by one, they rushed onto the Kunpeng. The Kunpeng was extremely fast. Its huge body was like a moving ship, flying towards the horizon with a whoosh. The elder and the rest cheered. They couldn't wait to chase after the victory. They shouted, "Hao Tianwang, you traitor, you know how to be afraid. Why don't you surrender?" It was too late to say, but in a flash, the elder wanted to chase after Hao Tianwang. Tang Zheng hurriedly shouted, "Don't chase after a cornered enemy." He saw through Xiao Bai's background. Since Hao Tianwang had already retreated, there was no need to chase after him. Otherwise, if he really angered Hao Tianwang, it would be counterproductive. The elder stopped and looked at Tang Zheng in confusion. He asked angrily, "Why aren't we chasing after him? This is a great opportunity for us to annihilate this traitor." Tang Zheng lowered his voice and said earnestly, "Elder, this matter isn't as simple as you think." As he spoke, he looked in the direction of Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai didn't chase after him. Instead, he met Tang Zheng's gaze. Their eyes met and they understood each other's thoughts. Xiao Bai flew back to everyone's side. Everyone's eyes immediately focused on him. The elder looked at Xiao Bai excitedly and said, "Your Majesty, why didn't we chase after him? If we miss this great opportunity, there will be even better opportunities in the future." Xiao Bai smiled bitterly and said, "Elder, this matter isn't as simple as you think." The elder didn't understand and said matter-of-factly, "But Your Majesty, you've already inherited the divine ability of the imperial ancestor. How can that traitor be your match?" "It's true that I've inherited this divine ability, but I haven't fully mastered it. I'm still far from true success. I'm not Hao Tianwang's match at all." Xiao Bai said dejectedly, but he had to admit this cruel reality. As soon as these words came out, it was not only to the elder, but also to the others, causing them to instantly feel cold. Everyone looked at each other, unable to accept this reality. They originally thought that they could hold their heads high and turn defeat into victory, but it turned out that they were still at a disadvantage. Tang Zheng said indifferently, "Hao Tianwang's cultivation is very powerful. It's not that easy to surpass him." As for this time, he fled in a sorry state completely because he was frightened by the scene just now. Or rather, he was frightened by the legend of the imperial family. After seeing Xiao Bai's scene, he didn't dare to attack rashly and act rashly. When everyone heard this, they gradually understood what was going on and felt as if they had suddenly come to a realization. Xiao Bai nodded and said, "Master is right. I was just bluffing just now to scare Hao Tianwang away. Otherwise, we would have definitely lost this battle." Everyone said in their hearts that they were lucky. The ancestor was secretly ashamed. He said in his heart that if he really chased after them, he would have ruined His Majesty's plan and caused everyone to fall into a dangerous situation. Tang Zheng glanced at the messy battlefield and the destroyed Suicide Valley. The Suicide Valley had already turned into ruins, and there was no way to continue living here. Moreover, this place had already been exposed. If Hao Tianwang came back to his senses and attacked them, what would they do? Therefore, they had to leave the Suicide Valley as soon as possible. Tang Zheng made a prompt decision and said, "Organize everyone, treat the wounded, and take care of the funeral for our fallen comrades. Then, we will leave this place as soon as possible." Xiao Bai nodded in agreement. "Right now, we can't clash head-on with Hao Tianwang for the time being. If we want to win the final victory of this war and take back the heavens beyond heaven, This is a protracted battle. We have to preserve our strength as much as possible. The others were no longer as blind as before. They all nodded in agreement. This battle had taught them a profound lesson, and it was also a profound lesson. Although they usually vowed to make a comeback and take back the heavens beyond heaven, they now understood that this was a difficult battle. It was not something that could be done with just shouting slogans. Of course, their hopes of victory had not been completely dispelled. On the contrary, Xiao Bai's change allowed them to see hope. The rise of the imperial family was imperative. Everyone started to move. When they saw their injured and sacrificed comrades, they all became silent. The grief in their hearts turned into strength and was stored in the bottom of their hearts. They were only waiting for the day when they would completely explode. Xiao Bai was worried and asked, "Master, what should we do next?" Tang Zheng looked at Xiao Bai, who had transformed into a stone monkey, and the legend of the 72 transformations. He couldn't help but become more curious about the imperial family. What kind of history did the imperial family have? Chapter 1671. The Wildlands. After hearing Tang Zheng's decision, many people were confused. Tian Chanzi's eyelids twitched a few times, and he looked excited. His sect was in the Wildlands. Now, he could finally see his sect. The great ancestor was worried and said, "The Wildlands is a wasteland, and it's not a place to stay for long. It's easy to be trapped there by the enemy." Tang Zheng disagreed and said, "That was in the past. How can we be trapped to death so easily?" After a pause, he continued, "Now that we're weak and the enemy is too strong, we must unite all the forces that can be united." Yi Dingdang and the others understood the history of the human world and agreed. They agreed and said, "That makes sense. Hao Tianwang is powerful, but we're not bad. At worst, we can use guerrilla warfare and let them be chaotic first. There will always be an opportunity to take advantage of." The great ancestor and the others looked at Yi Dingdang in surprise. They did not expect the little girl to say such things. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "Xiao Bai, you should tell everyone what realm your cultivation is at first to give them some confidence." As soon as he said that, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. The great ancestor asked excitedly in a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, what realm is your cultivation?" Xiao Bai was a little embarrassed. He hesitated and said, "I'm already at the 8th stage of the Mahayana realm." Hiss. One by one, the sound of gasping was heard, and there were exclamations everywhere. 8th stage of the Mahayana realm. Oh my God, your cultivation is so high. Pairs of eyes stared at Xiao Bai. In the blink of an eye, his cultivation had increased so much from the 6th stage of the Mahayana realm to the 8th stage of the Mahayana realm. Tang Zheng knew that he did not have the ability and opportunity to do so. He had worked hard and advanced to the 7th stage of the Mahayana realm because of all kinds of opportunities, but Xiao Bai had already surpassed him. This is the foundation. I'm fighting alone, while Xiao Bai is standing on the shoulders of the imperial family. The two can't be compared at all. Tang Zheng sighed. He wasn't envious or jealous. Instead, he was sincerely happy for Xiao Bai. Now, Xiao Bai's cultivation was the highest among them all. Xiao Bai said with certainty, "Master will definitely improve faster than me and will soon surpass me." The Grand Elder did not comment, but he clearly did not believe these words. He knew very well how difficult it was to improve towards the end. Xiao Bai's improvement was due to the inheritance and foundation of the royal family. How could it be so easy for others to surpass him? In the past, Xiao Bai's cultivation had always been suppressed by Tang Zheng. The Grand Ancestor felt that it was detrimental to the dignity of the imperial family. Now that he had finally surpassed Tang Zheng, he immediately felt proud and elated. He had preserved the glory of the imperial family. "Xiao Bai, how many changes do you know now?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. 3. After Xiao Bai said this, his body underwent a huge change. In the blink of an eye, he had changed back to his previous appearance. His entire body was snow-white and covered in hair. His forehooves stepped on fire and soared into the sky. He was awe-inspiring. In the next second, Xiaobai changed again. This time, he turned into a human and quietly stood in front of Tang Zheng. After everyone witnessed this scene, they were immediately shocked. This was definitely not an illusion. He had truly changed into another appearance. Illusion techniques could be seen through, but Xiaobai's transformation technique could not be seen through. This was much better than the 100 Changes Star Lord's transformation technique. Is this the 72 transformations? Tang Zheng asked enviously. Xiaobai lightly nodded. Yes, truly mastering it through a comprehensive study. Comprehending the 72 transformations is a great divine ability. What I know now is only the tip of the iceberg. Just the tip of the iceberg was already an eye-opener. Just how powerful would the true divine ability be? Everyone exclaimed in their hearts. Tang Zheng's gaze turned to the four symbols again. He asked curiously, why is the four symbols one of the conditions for all of this to happen? Obviously, this question hit the nail on the head. The four symbols were things of the mortal world. Why would they form a connection with the sky beyond heaven and even contribute to all of this? The four symbols and Xiaobai looked at each other and shook their heads blankly. The four symbols said in a daze, Master, when I landed on the ground, that rock deeply attracted me. I unconsciously connected with it. It contained a surging power, as if it was the purest power in the world. Everything that happened after that was seen by everyone. We caused this ball of power to explode and fuse into Xiaobai's body. Thus, he has the divine ability of the 72 transformations. The four symbols spoke endlessly, but it caused Tang Zheng's thoughts to become more and more confused. He could not grasp the opportunity within at all. Xiaobai also looked at Tang Zheng blankly. As the person involved, Xiaobai was also confused. Tang Zheng let out a long breath and temporarily threw this question to the back of his mind. If he couldn't figure it out now, then he could only wait for the future. Let's leave the Suicide Valley first. We'll talk about other things later. Tang Zheng made the final decision, temporarily dispelling the thoughts of the others who wanted to get to the bottom of this. In this battle, there were casualties on both sides. Even the Witch clan had sacrificed their clansmen, but none of the Witch clan had any complaints. The Witch clan was a natural warrior, and it was their destiny to die in battle. If they died of old age at home, that would be a true humiliation, and dying on the battlefield would be an honor. The patriarch and the others had witnessed the bravery of the Witch clan. Although many of the Witch clan's cultivations were not as high as theirs, their temperament and indomitable fighting spirit moved them. It was something that ordinary people could not compare to. This battle allowed the two forces to perfectly merge together, eliminating the estrangement and unfamiliarity between them. The somersault cloud carried the wounded, and the others all rode on their magic treasure and flew into the air, flying towards the wilderness. Xiaobai came to Tang Zheng's side, and as he flew, he said, Master, just now, I happened to see a familiar figure. I don't know if it was me who saw it. Tang Zheng looked at him deeply and said, I know who you saw. Xiaobai raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise, Master, you saw him too? Tang Zheng nodded and said coldly, Sacrifice. The son of Bai Mei Daoist, the leader of the righteous path. Although I've only seen him once, he left a deep impression on me. How could I forget? Xiaobai flew into a rage. It really is him. I thought I had misjudged him. He was on the back of the Kuan Peng and was in cahoots with Hao Tianwang. He must have something to do with this attack. At first, they thought that they had accidentally been discovered by Hao Tianwang, so they led the army to attack the Suicide Valley. Now it seemed that they were wrong. It was not that they had exposed their whereabouts, but that someone had tipped them off. Is it the wild dog? Xiaobai was skeptical. Only the wild dog knew about the existence of the Suicide Valley and them. Tang Zheng thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, It's not him. Although I haven't known the wild dog for long, I'm sure he's not the kind of person who would leak information. Then how did Sacrifice know that we were in the Suicide Valley? I'm afraid the wild dog accidentally exposed this place, and then Bai Mei Daoist and his sons sold us out in exchange for wealth and glory. Humph, this is the so-called righteous path. Tang Zheng scoffed, feeling great disdain. Xiao Bai was filled with killing intent. Then I will properly settle this score with them. Chapter 1672. The barbarian land was already in sight. In the barbarian land, the righteous faction did not know what had happened in the Suicide Valley. They were still living their lives step by step, completely unaware that their lives would be turned upside down. The righteous faction was trying to survive in the cracks. They had been used to this kind of life for hundreds of years. Although the conditions in the barbarian land were more difficult than before, they still persevered. It was better than death. But some of them had their lives turned upside down. Kingsaman was one of them. People would weigh the pros and cons and judge the situation. Ever since they knew that a powerful senior in Kingsaman was still alive and had a close relationship with the outsider, many righteous faction members' attitudes towards Kingsaman had changed drastically. The distinct Void sect had already declined and became an insignificant small sect. Normally, they would not be placed in the eyes of others. But now, they were no longer the same. Many people realized that Kingsaman would rise. Of course, they wanted to curry favor with Kingsaman before it rose. They hoped that Kingsaman would give them a hand in the future because of their old friendship. The leader of Kingsaman, Taixuzi, naturally became one of the most popular people. Although they knew that Bai Mei Daoist would not be happy, everyone still contacted Taixuzi openly or secretly. Another person who changed his fate was Wild Dog. Because he was born ugly and his cultivation was not very high, he used to be looked down upon by others and was someone they respected from a distance. But now, it was different. He was in high demand. Moreover, there were even beautiful female cultivators who extended an olive branch to him and invited him to discuss the Tao of dual cultivation. Wild Dog was overjoyed. He was always smiling in front of people, as if he had climbed up from the dark abyss to the clouds. The others were jealous, disdainful, or fawning over him, but no one exposed him. But there were also people who wanted to watch a good show, waiting to see what would happen to Wild Dog. Wild Dog, however, was not blinded by the superficial glory. A small man like him had been surviving at the bottom for too long. How could he not understand the rules of this society? Naturally, he had his own way of surviving as a small man. Although his smile was brighter than a flower and he seemed to be carried away, he knew clearly in his heart what he should do and what he should say. He was not out of line at all. Some people were happy, while others were sad. Bai Mei Daoist looked at these people and gritted his teeth in hatred. However, he still had to feign civility and smile. You guys jump around. There aren't many good days left. I've calculated the time. She must have already brought Hao Tianwang to attack the Suicide Valley. There's no suspense about the outcome of this battle. I'm just waiting for my triumphant return, then I can take care of these eyesores. Bai Mei Daoist's wishful thinking was extremely good. He watched coldly from the sidelines. He was only waiting for a time to strike, and then his big knife would fall without hesitation. At that time, after Tang Zheng and others left the barbarian land, Bai Mei Daoist sent his son to inform Hao Tianwang to give Tang Zheng and others a fatal blow. However, Shi Ming circled around the imperial city for many days but did not see Hao Tianwang. Finally, she saw the great battle in the Sky City and was directly scared back to the barbarian land. They were reprimanded by White Eyebrows Taoist for a long time. In the end, when Wild Dog returned, the situation of the righteous faction quietly changed. Only then did the two fathers make a risky move. They risked their lives to return alone, and went deep into the tiger's den to report. This time, he was brave enough to risk his life, and his luck was good enough. He really succeeded in leaking the information. Bai Mei Daoist did not see his son Shi Ming. Instead, he sensed that the array set up outside the barbarian land was violently fluctuating, as if it could collapse at any time. Bai Mei Daoist stood up, surprised and doubtful. He muttered, "What's going on? Could it be that someone has entered the barbarian land? But with such a big movement, it doesn't seem like it's from one person or a few people, but many people. Where did so many people come from? Could it be Hao Tianwan's people?" He thought about it and beamed with joy. Could it be that Xi Ming brought them here? She's so stupid to bring them to the barbarian land. Won't everything we do be exposed? He did not dare to sit still and wait for death. He hurriedly rushed forward, wanting to see what was going on. In the barbarian land, figures flew up from the desolate cracks of the stone, rushed into the sky, and looked into the distance. Huh! When they saw the large group flying quickly, everyone was stunned. They had hidden in the barbarian land for many days and had never seen so many outsiders. Who were these people? What was their purpose? Their hearts were in a mess, and they were extremely nervous. They stretched their necks and tried to see who the people were. White Eyebrows Taoist looked around and saw that everyone was nervous. However, he felt complacent in his heart. How could this be? Although it was too rash to bring so many people to the barbarian land, Bai Mei Daoist thought about it and felt that there was still a chance. He might as well show his claws and teeth in front of everyone, or rather, his strength, and let others see. In the future, who would dare to go against him? That would be suicide. Then his throne as the leader of the alliance would be more secure. At the thought of this, his mood was not nervous. He stared in the direction of the people, his eyes full of expectation. Wild Dog did not say a word. He looked at them from afar, his ugly face very complicated. Suddenly, his eyes were cold, and there was joy in the depths of his eyes. It's them. He sensed a familiar aura among the people who came. His heart was set, and he immediately recognized the identity of this group of people. Especially when the white cloud approached, it was very conspicuous. How could he not know who these people were? The others did not know much about Tang Zheng, so they did not see any clues for the time being. Wild Dog couldn't wait any longer. With a whoosh, he rushed towards the newcomer. Wild Dog, what are you doing? The others did not know what was going on and asked loudly. Wild Dog turned a deaf ear and flew directly to the people who came. Finally, he saw the clues clearly. Immediately, he was overjoyed and directly knelt down in the air. He was so excited that he spoke incoherently and shouted loudly, "You are finally here." This action and reaction made the others stunned, but most of these people were smart. They immediately understood what was going on and their faces changed greatly. They had already realized who these people were. Bai Mei Daoist's expression froze in an instant, as if he had eaten a fly. His expression froze, his chin drooped down, and he was dumbfounded. Looking at Wild Dog kneeling in front of him, Tang Zheng's lips curled into a smile as he said, "Wild Dog, get up." "Yes, I've been waiting for you." Wild Dog was very excited and his eyes were filled with tears because he knew what this meant to him. The courtesy he had received before was just a castle in the air. Only when Tang Zheng came to the barbarian land again would his life really change. Heaven Monk's gaze swept past the Wild Dog and looked at the people in the distance. His eyes were filled with a complicated expression, and his legs felt like they were filled with lead. He was actually unable to move at all. Was he afraid of returning home? No, Tian Chanzi's situation was far more complicated than that. He was the only one who knew the reason. He looked from afar, as if he was looking for the people of Kingsaman in the crowd, but he was afraid to see his own disciples. It seemed that there was something he did not want to face. Please follow my WeChat official account, Tang Xiao. I have news about new books. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1673. Everyone from the good faction saw Wild Dog's every move, and the crowd also flew in front of them. Each pair of eyes clearly saw the faces of this group of people. Immediately, each and every one of their faces changed unpredictably, their expressions extremely rich, but without a doubt, their eyes intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Bai Mei Daoist. Obviously, the arrival of this group of people will make Bai Mei Daoist's life difficult. Taixuzi has been worried about news of his sect's seniors. Seeing that Tang Zheng has arrived, he impatiently rushed out of the crowd, attracting everyone's attention. Bai Mei Daoist gritted his teeth itching with hatred, secretly said, "Taixuzi, are you so impatient? Do you really think that Kingsaman can make a comeback and suppress me, Bai Mei Daoist?" Bai Mei Daoist was indignant in his heart, but he did not dare to say it out loud. Even when faced with other people's gloating eyes, Bai Mei Daoist only saw it in his eyes and remembered it in his heart. On the contrary, his face quickly squeezed out a smile, changing his expression faster than flipping a book, hurriedly greeted Tang Zheng and the others, laughing loudly, "Everyone, meeting again after such a long time, it's really a great blessing in life." Although he did not understand how these people did not die, Bai Mei Daoist still chose to feign civility, to avoid revealing any flaws. Tang Zheng and the others stopped, looking at Taixuzi and Bai Mei Daoist standing in front of them, their eyes thought-provoking, difficult to understand. Of course, everyone's focus was different. Tian Chanzi's attention was not on Bai Mei Daoist, but was staring at Taixuzi. Taixuzi also met Tian Chanzi's gaze, 4 eyes meeting. Although they were in the crowd, these 2 pairs of eyes still locked onto each other. That was because they all practiced the same cultivation technique. Naturally, they could tell that the unique aura was completely different from that of the others. "Senior." Taixuzi's heart was filled with apprehension as he shouted excitedly. However, thousands of words were stuck in his throat and he couldn't say a single word. The word "senior" caused Tian Chanzi's expression to tighten, and he stammered, unable to say a word for a long time. In the eyes of the others, these 2 people's reactions were not very strange. They just thought that they were too excited to reunite after a long time. Tang Zheng even gave Tian Chanzi a push and jokingly said, "You've already met your fellow disciple. Why are you still so shy like a woman?" For the first time, Tian Chanzi did not refute Tang Zheng. "Huh?" Seeing Tian Chanzi's abnormal reaction, Tang Zheng was very surprised, but he didn't say anything. Taixuzi bowed deeply and respectfully. He said excitedly, "The entire Kingsaman welcomes Senior back to our sect." Tian Chanzi's expression became more and more complicated. He had thousands of words to say, but he couldn't say them. He was like a completely different person. Tang Zheng finally realized that Tian Chanzi was a little strange. This was not like his style at all. Taixuzi said respectfully, "May I know Senior's name? It's good for us juniors to know who you are and remember you in our hearts." The other Kingsaman people also walked out of the crowd and came to the front. They looked at Tian Chanzi with burning eyes, wanting to see the elegance of their senior. Looking at the pairs of burning eyes, Tian Chanzi's eyes flickered. He seemed to want to avoid them, as if he didn't hear Taixuzi's question. "May I know Senior's name?" Taixuzi saw that Tian Chanzi didn't say a word, so he asked again. He couldn't help but feel nervous. Tian Chanzi still turned a deaf ear, as if he was possessed. Tang Zheng was finally sure that there was a secret behind this. He said in a low voice, "Tian Chanzi, what's wrong with you? Don't call me that." Tian Chanzi heard Tang Zheng's words, as if he had just woken up from a dream. He shouted loudly as if he was possessed, but it was obviously too late. He stopped abruptly, and his expression became very serious. "Don't tell me he doesn't want me to call him by his name?" Tang Zheng thought. He immediately guessed Tian Chanzi's unfinished words. He was confused and couldn't figure out Tian Chanzi's true intentions. However, the 3 words, Tian Chanzi, were clearly heard by others. The Kingsaman people had been listening attentively, so how could they miss these 3 words? Suddenly, they felt as if they had found a treasure. They finally knew the senior's name. Now, the whole Kingsaman would be under the senior's protection. Tian Chanzi, this name sounded familiar. They immediately compared it with the names of the famous seniors recorded in Kingsaman. If there was anyone in Kingsaman who knew the history of the sects and the seniors best, it would be the sect leader, Taixuzi. Ever since he knew that there were seniors in Kingsaman still alive, Taikuzi had already made a list of the famous figures in Kingsamen's history. However, the name, Enchanting, was not on the list. Taikuzi was slightly stunned. He didn't understand what was going on. He muttered to himself, "This name sounds so familiar. I must have seen it somewhere before. How could I forget it?" Suddenly, a lightning-like thought flashed through his mind. He finally remembered why this name sounded so familiar. He widened his eyes and looked at Enchanting in disbelief. He opened his mouth wide and couldn't close it for a long time. He was also speechless. The other Kingsman people also came to their senses and exclaimed in disbelief, "Enchanting, it's him. How could it be him?" The crowd looked at each other in dismay. It was hard for them to accept all this. It seemed to be an extremely cruel reality. The others didn't know what was going on, but they also saw the problem. Enchanting's face darkened. It was as if he had lost all of his energy and was in a daze. Tang Zheng had never seen Enchanting so depressed before. He didn't want to see Enchanting so depressed. He roared in a low voice. It was as if a bolt from the blue had exploded in Enchanting's ears. He said loudly, "Enchanting, pull yourself together. What is going on?" Taikuzi looked at Enchanting in a daze. He asked, "Senior, how can you be Enchanting?" Enchanting gradually came to his senses. Although he still looked like he had lost his soul, he stammered, "I am Enchanting." He seemed to have used up all of his strength to say this sentence. His whole body was drenched in sweat. It was as if all of his strength had been sucked out. From top to bottom of the clear void sect, even Tai Shuzi was no exception. Their faces all turned pale, and some of them kept shaking their heads, as though they could not accept this reality. They muttered to themselves as though they were possessed, "How could Senior be the heaven monk? How can this be?" They couldn't accept this reality at all. What is so special about Enchanting's identity? Why are they reacting so strongly? This question popped up in many people's minds. Enchanting gritted his teeth. His expression became more and more complicated. Seeing that he couldn't get an answer from Enchanting, Tang Zheng's eyes fell on Taikuzi. He asked in a low voice, "Tell me, what is going on?" Taikuzi stammered, "Enchanting is a traitor of Kingsman." Chapter 1674. Traitor of Kingsman. Taikuzi's short sentence deeply shocked the others. Screams of disbelief rang out. Pairs of eyes looked at Enchanting, but they couldn't see that he was a traitor. Tang Zheng stared at Enchanting with burning eyes. He had thought of many possibilities, but never would he have thought of this. Enchanting didn't defend himself. Instead, he looked sad and haggard, as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. This was an eternal pain in his heart. Now that it was exposed, he felt as if his whole body was being cut by knives in front of so many people. Tang Zheng thought for a while and shook his head silently. He didn't believe that Enchanting was a traitor of Kingsman. Because, since the day they met, Enchanting had been full of respect for the sect. This couldn't be faked. He believed that Enchanting must be like this in his heart, which was why he could act the same. Then why did Taikuzi say that Enchanting was a traitor? What was the secret behind this? Enchanting's reaction was so strange, and he didn't refute it. Obviously, he admitted to this point. What was going on? Tang Zheng took a deep breath and asked, "Taikuzi, what is going on?" Taikuzi's expression also became very complicated. He thought that it was a respected senior in the sect, but it turned out that it was a traitor who was condemned in speech and writing. This huge contrast made him feel like he was on a roller coaster, falling from the sky to the bottom of the valley. Seeing that Tang Zheng was looking at him with a dignified expression, Taikuzi felt a little guilty. This was a scandal in the sect, and it hadn't been publicized. Now it seemed that it had to be made public. Taikuzi looked deeply at Enchanting and said with emotion, "It's a long story, This wasn't something that could be explained in a few words, but Taixuzi's concise and comprehensive explanation allowed the others to gradually understand. Immediately, the way they looked at Tianchanzi changed again and again. It turned out that Tianchanzi's betrayal of his master was actually such a complicated and bizarre experience. Back then, Tianchanzi was also a famous figure in Kingsman. He was even one of the best among the younger generation in the cultivation world. Many people believed that he would be the next leader of Kingsman. But in the end, he did not become the head of the sect. Not only did he trespass into the forbidden area of the sect, but he also kidnapped the newly married wife of the new head. He betrayed the sect and was nailed to the pillar of shame, which was remembered by the descendants of Kingsman for generations to come. He became a bad example to warn the disciples not to become a person like Tianchanzi. There were many records about Tianchanzi in Kingsman. Most of them said that he was unpardonably evil, was too evil, lusted after women, and even dared to touch the fiancée of the new head of the sect. In short, Tianchanzi's evil deeds were too numerous to be recorded. Tang Zheng was stunned after hearing this. He knew Tianchanzi the best, so he could definitely guarantee that Tianchanzi was definitely not such a person. Then what was the secret behind this that no one knew? Tianchanzi didn't say a word. He looked calm, but the twitching of his mouth showed that his heart had long been stirred up. Of all the people, only Bai Mei Daoist was the happiest. He didn't expect such a farce, which greatly reduced the prestige of this group of outsiders. What the righteous faction hated the most was traitors who betrayed their sect. Since this group of people were together, then they were jackals of the same tribe. Even if they were strong, they were not a monolithic block. Bai Mei Daoist could make an issue out of this and sow discord, so that this group of people would not be able to gain a firm foothold in the righteous faction. Tang Zheng's thoughts were all on Tianchanzi. The importance of the other righteous faction members was far less important than Tianchanzi. If he didn't figure out this problem, he definitely wouldn't give up. Thus, he stared at Tianchanzi aggressively and unhappily asked, "Tianchanzi, are you mute? Where did your usual imposing manner go? Why are you so dispirited? People are slandering you like this, don't tell me you don't have a single word to refute?" It was precisely because Tang Zheng believed in Tianchanzi that he naturally didn't believe Taixuzi's words. Thus, he directly asked Tianchanzi to refute. When Taixuzi heard this, he nervously said, "This is the sect's record, not slandering." "Shut up." Tang Zheng didn't even turn his head. In his heart, he didn't care about Taixuzi at all. As for Kingsman, it was also because Tianchanzi and Fang Shishir were from this sect that he viewed this sect in a different light. Taixuzi's neck shrunk. He kept quiet out of fear and didn't dare to say anything else. When Tianchanzi heard Tang Zheng's reprimand, his whole body trembled. It was as if something in the bottom of his heart had been stimulated. He raised his head, his eyes dull. Finally, he faintly sighed and said, "Let bygones be bygones. Don't mention it again." "Why don't you mention it? There must be a misunderstanding. How can you not explain it clearly? How could Tang Zheng let it go like this?" This involved Tianchanzi's reputation. He was more concerned about it than Tianchanzi. Tianchanzi said indifferently, "Let bygones be bygones. There's no need to mention it." "You." Tang Zheng stared straight at Tianchanzi. However, Tianchanzi didn't respond at all. He was as still as a pine tree, making Tang Zheng feel helpless. In the end, he had no choice. He couldn't pry open Tianchanzi's mouth. "If you don't say it, then you can't return to the sect." Tang Zheng hit the nail on the head and poked Tianchanzi's weak spot. Tianchanzi's face stiffened. This was indeed his weak spot. His breathing became rapid. In fact, this time he came to sky beyond sky because he wanted to return to the sect. However, he also knew that this was not an easy task. However, he didn't give up hope because this had always been his dream. In the beginning, he was sealed in the ancient clear heaven scroll because he wanted to return to the sect. This led to him being sealed for thousands of years. There was a rule in Kingsaman. If a disciple made a great contribution to the sect, he could be pardoned from all crimes. Even if he was expelled from the sect, he could still return to the sect. For a cultivation sect, a peerless cultivation method was a great contribution. It was enough to meet this condition. All crimes would be pardoned, and the abandoned disciple could return to the sect. Tian Chanzi wanted to obtain the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll and then give it to the sect. He wanted to fight for a chance to return to the sect. Unfortunately, before he could succeed, he died in a fierce battle with the demon clan. Both of them were sealed in the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll. Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng in a daze. Ever since he lost the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll, Tian Chanzi placed his hopes on Tang Zheng. He thought that if he could find a genius like Tang Zheng for the sect and let him enter Kingsaman, it would be a great contribution to the sect and he could return to the sect. However, Tang Zheng didn't enter Kingsaman. Tian Chanzi didn't expect that Tang Zheng would become so powerful that he would lose his last chance to return to the sect. This time, he came to Sky Beyond Sky with mixed feelings. He wanted to see his fellow sect members, but he was also afraid. In the end, it was proven that the actual situation was even worse than what he had imagined. He was actually used as a negative example and spread throughout the sect. Even after 1,000 years, his disciples and grand disciples still remembered him and treated him as the shame of the distinct void sect. Chapter 1675. The atmosphere in the barbarian land became strange. Tang Zheng and the others, who had come aggressively, did not have the desired effect because of Tian Chanzi. Kingsaman felt as if they had fallen from a high altitude into an abyss. The seniors they had high hopes for had turned out to be traitors. This was equivalent to slapping them hard in the face, and it happened in front of so many people. One could imagine how they felt. Among all the people, Bai Mei Daoist was the happiest. His shaky position seemed to have stabilized. No matter how powerful these people were, it would not be easy for them to make waves in the righteous faction if their reputation was tarnished because they had allied themselves with the righteous traitors. However, many people still noticed the ancestor elder and the others. These natives of the outland had shocked them greatly, and they felt that they were in imminent danger. The righteous faction had always been hostile to the natives of the outland. Now that the ancestor elder and the others were living in the barbarian land, it was as if a fierce tiger was beside them. Tang Zheng's attention was focused on Tian Chanzi's matter, so he did not have the time to deal with the matter of risking life and decided to settle the score later. Bai Mei Daoist did not know that his conspiracy had been seen through, and he was still helping these people to settle down. After settling these people down, White Eyebrows Taoist carried out his plan. Although he had risked his life and hadn't returned to inform the others, he didn't know what had happened, but it didn't hinder his plan. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that these people had not gained a firm foothold in the barbarian land to fan the flames and stir up the emotions of others. It would be best if he could drive them out and protect his own interests and status. The righteous faction was a huge alliance. It was not just one sect. Other than Kingsaman, there were many other sects, big and small. A rumor began to spread among these sections. The outland was treacherous and had allied themselves with the righteous traitors. This was enough to prove their roots. If these people were allowed to stay in the barbarian land, wouldn't it mean that the righteous faction had allied themselves with them? The righteous faction was called the righteous faction because it was in sharp contrast to the devil tribe. The righteous faction insisted on using morality as the yardstick, and they could not coexist with darkness and evil. Doesn't this mean that the righteous path has fallen? Many people had strange thoughts in their minds. Even if the righteous path were to perish, they could not lose their nature. If they were to compromise, then what was the difference between them and the devil race? A bold idea sprouted in their minds. Expel these people. Even if we die, we don't need their protection. Moreover, they may not be able to protect them. This thought was like a wildfire, quickly burning in the hearts of many of the good faction people. The undercurrent was surging, but Tang Zheng did not know. They did not tell the righteous path about everything that happened in the Suicide Valley. A group of people were gathered together, frowning. Many people tried to persuade Tianchanzi to tell the truth, but Tianchanzi remained silent, as if he had suddenly become mute. The venerable ancestor did not care much about this issue. Instead, he said to Xiaobai excitedly, "Your Majesty, we have retreated to the barbarian land. But if Heavenly King Hao invades, how are we going to defend?" Everyone knew very well that although they had scared away Hao Tianwang at that time, there would still be a moment when he regained his senses. At that time, Hao Tianwang's anger would probably destroy the heavens and the earth, and would even kill them. The savage land might not be able to withstand Hao Tianwang's anger. Xiaobai was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, he raised his head and looked at Tang Zheng. Obviously, although Xiaobai's strength was above Tang Zheng's, he still followed Tang Zheng's lead. This kind of big matter still had to be decided by Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng retracted his gaze from Tianchanzi and said in a deep voice, "We need to unite the righteous path and use the righteous path's strength. Then, with the savage land as a stronghold, we can set up the Heaven's Chess to defend against Hao Tianwang's attack." Heaven's Chess. Many people's eyes lit up, but the ancestor and the others were confused. They had never heard of these two words before. If there is a Heaven's Chess, then it might not be impossible to defend against Hao Tianwang's attack. Xiaobai seemed to be deep in thought as he said with high fighting spirit. The ancestor did not understand and hurriedly asked, "Your Majesty, what is the Heaven's Chess? Is it that useful?" It was no wonder that the ancestor questioned the power of the Heaven's Chess. Hao Tianwang's strength was simply too shocking. Xiaobai smiled mysteriously and said, "As for the power of the Heaven's Chess, it's better for Master to explain." Swish. Immediately, everyone's eyes focused on Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng knew that at this critical moment, he had to cheer everyone up, so he did not hide anything and directly explained, "The Heaven's Chess absorbs the power of the stars in the 9 heavens and uses the world as a chessboard. Every blade of grass and every tree in the chessboard can be used as a weapon to kill and defend against the enemy. Once you fall into the Heaven's Chess, you will lose control of your body, as if you can't control it." Although it was only a few words, it made the ancestor and the others tremble in fear. However, they were still skeptical and asked, "Is it really that powerful?" Tang Zheng did not nod, but the others had already nodded in agreement. The crowd's eyes were bright. Seeing the others nod, the ancestor and the others' doubts gradually disappeared. However, immediately after, their eyes lit up and they said eagerly, "Then why aren't you quickly setting up the Heaven's Chess in the savage land? This is not something that can be done overnight. I need to first explore the savage land situation, and I need the cooperation of the righteous faction before I can set up the Heaven's Chess." Tang Zheng said in a low voice. Everyone understood and their confidence gradually returned. Now, they were not afraid of Hao Tianwang's attack. Instead, they were looking forward to it. Many people wanted to see the power of the Heaven's Chess. In the next few days, Tang Zheng continued to explore the savage land. The savage land was not small, it was a wasteland without a single blade of grass. It was completely barren, completely bare rocks, and there was not even a river. Seeing all this, Tang Zheng only had one thought in his mind: desolation, desolation to the extreme. No wonder the natives of Beyond Heaven were unwilling to set foot in this area. It was worthless. The tree of life can turn a desert into an oasis. If there's a tree of life, maybe this savage land can become a fertile land. Tang Zheng's head moved and suddenly thought of something. However, just as this thought flashed through his mind, his heart suddenly trembled. It seemed that he had not seen the tree of life in Beyond Heaven. If Beyond Heaven was a large world, then where was the tree of life? Ever since he encountered the fire Qilin at the base of the tree of life in the mortal world, Tang Zheng could not help but be filled with curiosity about the tree of life. Tang Zheng was connected to the Heaven's Chess and the tree of life, but he did not expect the undercurrent to be surging in the savage land. A hidden storm had quietly formed. In these few days, Tianchanzi did not stay in the house. He also wandered around the savage land, but his focus was on the various sections. However, everyone looked at Tian Chanzi with a very complicated gaze, and it was becoming more and more thought-provoking. Chapter 1676. Tang Jing returned from exploring the barbarian land again. From afar, he saw a group of people blocking the place where his people lived. The noise was endless. Although the barbarian land was desolate, the ground was not suitable for building houses. Therefore, the righteous faction built their houses under the barbarian land, under the layers of hard rocks. The barbarian land seemed to have become a new city, exuding vitality. It was completely different from the desolation of the barbarian land. It was a different scene. Get out of the barbarian land. Get out of the barbarian land. A clamor of curses rang out incessantly. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. He did not understand what was going on. He passed through the crowd and shouted, "Excuse me, what's going on?" Seeing that it was him, the righteous faction looked at him with indescribable disdain and disgust. When he finally came to the door of his house, he found that his people had been surrounded by the righteous faction. They all looked angry. "What's going on?" Tang Zheng asked in a low voice. Yi Dingdang could not hold back the anger in her heart. Like a machine gun, she said quickly, "These people are making trouble for no reason. They want to drive us away. They don't know what's good for them." The great ancestor agreed. He said angrily, "We are here to help them, but they want to drive us away. This is ridiculous. We are the righteous faction. How can we live with a group of people with bad morals like you? We naturally want to drive you away." The righteous faction said solemnly. They did not care about the anger of the righteous faction. Tang Jing frowned and looked at the righteous faction people curiously. Suddenly, he saw Wild Dog in the crowd trying to squeeze forward. He shouted, "Wild Dog, what's going on?" Wild Dog's face was red. He squeezed through the crowd and said angrily, This, he stammered, as if he had something to say. Tang Jing scolded, "What's there to be afraid of?" Wild Dog took a deep breath and finally gathered his courage. He said, "They said that Tian Chanzi is a traitor of Kingsaman. He is also an enemy of the righteous faction. Kingsaman is a famous righteous faction. We can't be with such a traitor." "What?" Tang Jing exclaimed in surprise. This group of people had actually come for Tian Chanzi, and because of Tian Chanzi, they had vented their anger on them. A reputable sect? How arrogant. Tian Chanzi and Kingsaman's past grievances haven't been clarified yet, and you're already vowing to drive him away. You even want to drive us away. How preposterous. Tang Zheng's tone was heavy. As soon as his voice fell, it was like a huge rock pressing down on their hearts. Wild Dog hurriedly explained, "That's what they think. I don't think so. I also think that it's nonsense. Jumping to conclusions before things are clear is not what a strict righteous path would do. Wild Dog, who do you think you are? You don't have the right to speak in this matter." Someone snorted, not putting the Wild Dog in his eyes at all. The Wild Dog's face turned redder and redder. He raised his head and said, "I am also a member of the righteous path. Why can't I speak? Which sect are you from? You're just a lonely soul." The opposing soldier did not give up and continued to argue. Wild Dog was speechless. This was his weakness, and also the eternal pain in his heart. He had lived for so many years, and it was not easy for him to cultivate to his current level, but he was a rootless duckweed, without any sect. What's so great about being a sect? Since ancient times, how many sects have been destroyed, drowned in the long river of history? A sect is not worth mentioning. Tang Jing retorted. The righteous path was stunned. These words were not a small blow. Everyone looked at Tang Jing more and more, their original thoughts becoming more and more firm. You're indeed jackals of the same lair as that traitor Tian Chanzi. You actually dare to boast so shamelessly. Someone said angrily. This kind of person can't be left in the manhuang. He's a stain on our righteous path. Yes, get out of the man Huang. Get out of the man Huang. The shouts were deafening, and the crowd was furious. Tang Jing never thought that things would turn out like this. He originally thought that the two sides would be able to merge in a short time, but now they were at each other's throats. Why did all this happen? Shut up. Tang Jing looked at the agitated crowd and finally could not hold back his anger. He roared, and the sound wave was like a shock wave, spreading to every righteous path. The righteous path people felt like their chests had been hammered, and the rest of their words were stuck in their throats. They could not say anything. I'll leave, they don't have to leave. In complete silence, a voice quietly sounded out. Heaven Monk walked out from behind the crowd with a lonely expression and a look of guilt on his face. No. Tang Jing stared at Tian Chanzi. None of us will leave. After saying that, he turned his gaze, as if a sharp knife light fell on the righteous path. Looking at the angry crowd, he gradually saw some clues. Why would the righteous path have such a huge conflict? Was it only because of Tian Chanzi? Why would the righteous path be so united? Was there no one organizing or fanning the flames in the dark? There was definitely something fishy going on. Tang Jing was not a 3-year-old child and had experienced too many schemes. When he calmed down, he immediately discovered that there was something unusual about it. Then who was fanning the flames in the dark? Names flashed through Tang Jing's mind, and finally, it settled on one name, Bai Mei Daoist. He coldly snorted in his heart, and said to himself, Bai Mei Daoist, I haven't had the time to settle the score with you, but you've already started the war, and pointed the spearhead at me. In fact, when he arrived at the Man Huang, he already had thoughts of making a move on Bai Mei Daoist. But Bai Mei Daoist's identity was special, and he was the leader of the righteous path. Without full confidence and concrete evidence, there was no way to make a move on him. In other words, even if he really made a move on Bai Mei Daoist, it would arouse the resentment and conflict of the righteous path. This was not something that Tang Jing wanted to see. In order to deal with Hao Tianwang and take back Sky Beyond Sky, Tang Jing had to unite the righteous path. There would be a time when he would need the righteous path in the future. Now that he had offended all the righteous path, this would not do. This strategy of sowing discord had been perfected, but how could Tang Jing let Bai Mei Daoist's evil plan succeed? His gaze swept through the crowd, but he did not find Bai Mei Daoist's figure. Obviously, he had a guilty conscience and did not dare to come to the scene. When the righteous path heard Tang Jing's resolute words, they were very emotional. They looked at each other. Although they were frightened of Tang Jing's terrifying strength, in the end, they were all united. Everyone's emotions accumulated together and erupted at the same time, as if they were not afraid of Tang Jing at all. Get out of the Man Huang. Get out of the Man Huang. One after another, angry roars drowned out the crowd. Chapter 1677. Angry roars resounded in everyone's ears. Each and every one of the righteous path disciples had a sinister expression, as if they were about to gang up an attack. Shut up. A roar flew out from Tian Chanzi's mouth, like a shockwave, immediately suppressing all the other voices. Tian Chanzi raised his head, staring at the crowd in all directions and said, I will leave. Tang Jing shouted, no one needs to leave. Once I find the mastermind, this crisis will naturally be easily solved. Where is the mastermind behind the scenes? Yes, that's nonsense. The crowd was enraged, glaring at him. Tang Jing did not care so much, directly walking out of the crowd, coldly saying, if you don't believe me, then I will find the mastermind. Seeing is believing. Everywhere he passed, the crowd automatically parted, revealing a path. This was not the righteous path voluntarily letting him pass, but because of a powerful force, they had no choice but to move outwards. Even though the white eyebrows Daoist did not personally come, he was remotely controlling everything. This group of righteous Dao people had his trusted aides, and seeing that Tang Jing was about to break out, they swore to find the mastermind behind the scenes. This group of people had a guilty conscience, guessing that Tang Zheng was definitely aiming his spear at Bai Mei Daoist. Moreover, Tang Zheng's direction was also Bai Mei Daoist's residence. How could they let him rush there? Thus, this group of people fanned the flames and roared, "Quickly stop him! Wildlands is the territory of the Righteous Path Alliance. How can we allow an outsider to do as he pleases?" Under the temptation, there really were people who stood out. Even though Tang Zheng's strength was strong, but there were so many Righteous Path disciples, they still had enough confidence. "Stop!" Several people roared at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to them. Several people's expression turned cold, revealing a trace of killing intent. Pairs of hands attacked Tang Zheng, extremely fierce. Tang Zheng did not even look, lightly stretching out a finger, pointing towards the void, a wave of energy fluctuating. Bang bang bang. Their attacks collapsed, and they were sent flying like cannonballs. He actually dared to attack. This scene enraged even more people, and their gazes towards Tang Zheng were filled with fury. How can we, the Righteous Path, allow others to humiliate us at our doorstep? The shout ignited the crowd, and all kinds of magical equipment attacked Tang Zheng at the same time. When the old ancestor and the others saw this, they turned pale with fright. Just as they were about to rush over to help, they were stopped by Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai looked at the overbearing righteous faction mockingly and said, "Do they think that having more people means victory? You think you can bully master with numbers? Wishful thinking." The others were suddenly enlightened. They were worried about Tang Zheng. In fact, it was completely unnecessary. The 7th grade of the Mahayana realm was not a joke. Reality proved that Xiao Bai had a unique vision. When the multicolored magic weapon arrived in front of Tang Zheng, a black hole suddenly appeared. Whoosh! A strong wind blew. All the magic weapons were enveloped by the terrifying suction force of the black hole. Disappear! With a shout, the magic weapons flew into the black hole, disappearing without a trace. At the same time, there was a lot of pure energy in the heaven realm. These magic weapons were completely turned into energy, replenishing the heaven realm. The righteous faction were shocked, each and every one of them were frightened and unable to calm down. They did not understand what was going on. They had actually lost contact with their magic weapons. They looked at each other, obviously in the same situation. There was only one explanation for all of this: the magic weapons were destroyed. But the key was that so many magic weapons were destroyed with a wave of his hand. This was too terrifying, unheard of. The black hole disappeared, otherwise, these righteous faction cultivators would also be sucked in. Tang Zheng looked at the righteous faction indifferently. Wherever his eyes passed, the righteous faction cultivators trembled and subconsciously retreated. "Where are our magic weapons?" someone asked with trepidation. "Destroyed," Tang Zheng said indifferently. Although they had already guessed this, but when they heard Tang Zheng say it personally, they were all devastated, their faces ashen. Their magic weapons were equivalent to their second life, and were companions that had accompanied them for many years. It was a means to protect their lives. But it was destroyed so easily, so one could imagine how he felt. All destroyed? Someone did not give up and asked. Of course. These two simple words completely cut off everyone's thoughts. My magic weapons. Some people cried, their hearts aching. I spent a lot of money to buy them. What's mine is mine. I worked so hard to get it. Magic weapons were treasures in high demand, especially those that were satisfactory were even rarer. That was why this group of righteous faction cultivators were like this. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth hooked up into a faint smile. He did not destroy these people's magical equipment on a whim, but with a deeper meaning. He had just arrived and had yet to establish his power, so the righteous faction did not have much fear of him. Since they wanted to chase him away, didn't they just happen to bump into his blade? Then he would take this opportunity to use these people to establish his power and intimidate them. Pairs of red eyes stared fiercely at Tang Zheng, as if they wanted to swallow him alive. Compensate me for my magic weapons. Yes, compensate me for my magic weapons. Tang Zheng disdainfully said, it's just a few magic weapons. Just a few magic weapons? That's dozens of magic weapons. Do you know how hard it is to obtain a magic weapon? Do you know how many materials are needed to refine it? In the outland heavens, there were plenty of treasures. However, to the righteous path, they were struggling to survive. It was already difficult for them to survive, so how could they have the time and energy to search for treasures to refine treasures? So, for the righteous faction, magic weapons were very precious. Tang Zheng guessed this point, but still casually said, I can refine countless magic weapons, so to me, these few magic weapons are not worth mentioning. You know how to refine weapons? Everyone was immediately attracted by these words, sucking in a breath of cold air, half believing and half doubting him. It's just refining weapons, what's so difficult about it? Tang Zheng calmly said. The more he was like this, the more shocked the righteous faction cultivators were. They looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Since you know how to refine weapons, then hurry up and refine a magic weapon and compensate us. Someone aggressively said, the others quickly agreed, that's right, hurry up and refine a magic weapon and compensate us. Tang Zheng lightly smiled and said, you can't wait to chase us away, and you want me to refine a magic weapon for you, do you think that's possible? This one sentence was a checkmate, causing the righteous faction cultivators to look at each other, not knowing what to do. When Bai Mei Daoist's trusted aide saw this, he knew that if this continued, then Bai Mei Daoist's plan would be ruined, so he loudly shouted, don't listen to his nonsense, refining weapons is not that easy, he destroyed my magic weapon, and I cannot exist under the same sky with him, at most we will fight. The righteous faction, how can we let him play around? So. Chapter 1678. One by one, the righteous disciples charged towards Tang Zheng without any regard for their own safety. Shwa! The hidden profound sword flew out, floating in front of Tang Zheng, emitting a sharp sword light. That extremely simple saint rune lit up with a dazzling light, attracting everyone's attention. The hidden profound sword's aura was too strong, the sword humming unceasingly, as if the hidden profound sword was thirsting for blood, causing people's hair to stand on end. Saint inscriptions. Someone who was knowledgeable immediately recognized the saint inscriptions and exclaimed. That's a saint tool. Cries of surprise rang out from all directions. Saint tools were something that the righteous disciples could only hope to encounter by chance. Even a heaven-grade magic treasure would be fought over, not to mention a saint tool. Everyone was very clear on the power of a saint tool, so when they saw the hidden profound sword aimed at them, they were all stunned. Their footsteps came to an abrupt halt, as if they had suddenly braked, panicking as they stopped in front of Tang Zheng. Even those trusted followers of Bai Mei Daoist did not dare to risk their lives. They subconsciously retreated, not daring to charge forward. Tang Zheng's lips curled in a mocking smile. This group of righteous disciples were not unafraid of death, but in front of a saint tool, they were all scared stiff. Clearly, the saint tool's reputation was even greater than his own, Tang Zheng's. He walked forward step by step, and the righteous disciples retreated step by step. Both sides moved towards Bai Mei Daoist's residence. Xiao Bai looked as if he was watching a good show. He winked at the others, saying, everyone, let's go watch a good show. Xiao Bai was an intelligent person. He had also seen Bai Mei Daoist's style of doing things. It was naturally not difficult to guess that all of this was caused by Bai Mei Daoist fanning the flames. Bai Mei Daoist was so daring, Xiao Bai wanted to see what would happen to him in the end. The others were also in high spirits, except for Tian Chanzi, who seemed to be unwilling to go. Yi Dingdang had a fiery temper. How could she bear to see Tian Chanzi act coy? She grabbed him and said, Tian Chanzi, are you still a man? If you are a man, you should face it boldly. Isn't it just stealing the sect leader's woman? So what? Don't you think it's amazing? I'm not poaching anyone, Tian Chanzi blurted out. You didn't steal her? You couldn't have abducted the sect leader's new wife, right? Isn't this considered stealing? Yi Dingdang asked curiously. We're in love with each other. The sect leader is the one who came in between us, Tian Chanzi said faintly. Yi Dingdang's eyes lit up. It was as if she had discovered a new continent. There were so many twists and turns in this matter. This was a big piece of gossip. Then hurry up and tell me what's going on, she impatiently asked. Tian Chanzi froze for a moment, then immediately closed his mouth. Yi Dingdang glared at him with dissatisfaction. Helpless, she could only grab his sleeve and chase after Tang Zheng, not giving Tian Chanzi a chance to slip away. Everything was silent. Only the sound of footsteps could be heard. The righteous faction retreated, Tang Zheng advanced. Between the two was the hidden Xian sword floating in the air. During this time, Bai Mei Daoist's trusted aides fanned the flames a few times, but to no avail. It seemed that the other righteous faction members had also calmed down. Although the righteous faction members were not afraid of death, but that did not mean they did not cherish their own lives. Obviously, Tang Zheng was going after Bai Mei Daoist. Bai Mei Daoist was the leader of the righteous faction. This kind of matter should be handled by him. But he was hiding in the back. What a scandal. As a result, many people in the righteous faction gradually had their own thoughts. Bai Mei Daoist hid in his own house, surrounded by his trusted aides. He could control the righteous faction and sit on the throne of the alliance leader. Naturally, he had a group of trusted aides, and there were quite a few of them. Alliance leader, don't worry. This group of people will definitely be expelled. We have been brewing for so long. How can they withstand the anger of so many people? Seeing Bai Mei Daoist pacing back and forth with an uneasy expression, his trusted aide hurriedly comforted him. Bai Mei Daoist did not reply, but his heart was heavy. He was not completely confident, after all, he had fought with Tang Zheng before, and knew how powerful he was. If Bai Mei Daoist knew about the situation of the battle in Suicide Valley, perhaps, he would not have been so reckless and used the strategy of sowing discord. He still underestimated Tang Zheng. He thought that with the power of the righteous faction, with Tian Chanzi as the breakthrough point, they could definitely force these people to leave the savage wasteland. Suddenly, Tian Chanzi turned his head and looked outside. A wave of heavy footsteps approached from afar. The other trusted aides also turned their heads to look, all of them revealing suspicious expressions. Go out and take a look, Bai Mei Daoist ordered. One of his trusted aides hurriedly went out. After a while, he staggered back in panic and said, Alliance leader, something big has happened. What's the matter? Why are you so flustered? Tang Zheng is here. What? Bai Mei Daoist suddenly stopped in his tracks and stared straight at the door, as if he wanted to see through the wall. Bai Mei Daoist, are you hiding inside like a turtle? Hurry up and come out. Before Bai Mei Daoist could think of a countermeasure, Tang Zheng's voice had already floated in. These straightforward words immediately made Bai Mei Daoist feel as if he was sitting on pins and needles, not knowing what to do. But there was one thing, he could not hide in the house forever. Otherwise, his prestige as the alliance leader would be gone. Daoist white eyebrows didn't need to look to know that pairs of eyes were uniformly looking at his residence. His every move fell into the eyes of all the people. He went from being active to being passive. This kind of feeling was really unpleasant. Seeing that his trusted aides were all looking at him, waiting for him to make a decision, Bai Mei Daoist frowned. In the end, he gritted his teeth and walked out with large strides. Bang! The door was pushed open, and the pairs of eyes became even hotter, completely focused on Bai Mei Daoist. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, Bai Mei Daoist calmly swept his gaze over the crowd and asked the obvious, "What's wrong with all of you?" Alliance leader, this group of outsiders is in cahoots with traitors. We can't take them in and want them to get out of the wildlands. One of the trusted aides in the crowd cleverly replied. I see. Bai Mei Daoist pretended to suddenly understand, as if this was the first time he had heard such words and understood this matter. Tang Zheng looked at Bai Mei Daoist's performance with a fake smile. If he had not guessed the ins and outs of the situation, he might have been deceived by Bai Mei Daoist's superb acting. The white-browed Daoist priest looked at Tang Zheng from afar and let out a long sigh. He pretended to be in a difficult position and said, "Since this is a joint decision, then as the alliance leader, I can only support it. So everyone, the savage land does not welcome you, please leave." "Ha ha ha, have you really made up your mind?" Tang Zheng laughed. Bai Mei Daoist hesitated for a moment and then nodded. "This is everyone's decision. It is not something that I can influence alone. I'm afraid this is your decision alone, and then you fan the flames and lead others to it." Tang Zheng hit the nail on the head and said bluntly. These words pierced through Bai Mei Daoist's hypocritical face. Bai Mei Daoist's face stiffened. Chapter 1679. As soon as Tang Zheng finished speaking, Bai Mei Daoist's face turned pale. Although he tried his best to hide it, he was still caught by Tang Zheng. "Humph, you have a guilty conscience." Tang Zheng despised him. The others did not understand and looked at the two of them blankly. Bai Mei Daoist immediately calmed himself down, his face darkened, and pretended to be heartbroken. "Tang Zheng, I have no enmity with you in the past, why do you have to slander me like this? Our righteous path not only kindly took you in and provided you with a place to stay, but you repay kindness with enmity." Tang Zheng was not surprised by Bai Mei Daoist's reaction, as his reaction was not slow. After all, the other party was the righteous alliance leader, and to be able to sit on this throne, he was definitely not an ordinary person. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up as he sneered in ridicule, and said straightforwardly, "Repay kindness with enmity? Hee, this big hat is really skillful. Then let me ask you, where did your son go?" "Life risking." The others all turned their heads to look, but did not find any trace of life risking. Only then did they realize that it had been a while since they had seen life risking. If not for Tang Zheng deliberately reminding them, they would not have noticed this. The corner of Bai Mei Daoist's mouth twitched a few times, and his heart turned cold. He did not know about the Battle of Suicide Valley, so he naturally did not know how far the plan of risking his life had progressed. Hearing Tang Zheng take the initiative to mention risking his life, Bai Mei Daoist realized that he had probably overlooked a serious problem. The other party had definitely seen risking his life, or knew his whereabouts. This was troublesome. Didn't this mean that his scheme had been exposed? Bai Mei Daoist was unable to believe this, but relying on his aura that had been cultivated for many years, he did not immediately panic. His mind raced, and he immediately said calmly, "We have been living in seclusion in Suicide Valley for so long, and know nothing about the outside world. In order to avoid being blinded, I sent my son to risk his life to investigate the situation outside. He is risking his life for the sake of the righteous path. Is there a problem with that?" A few of his trusted aides cleverly followed up, pretending to be admiring as they said, "The Alliance Master is so far-sighted that he actually sent his own son to investigate. This selfless spirit is unparalleled, we admire him to the extreme." Bai Mei Daoist modestly cupped his hands and said, "This is what I should do as the Alliance leader. If my son doesn't go into the tiger's den, should I let others go into the tiger's den? As the leader of the Righteous Alliance, I, Bai Mei Daoist, would never do such a despicable thing." Once these words were said, there was a lot of discussion, gaining the good impression of many righteous faction members. Many people praised Bai Mei Daoist for his selflessness. Tang Zheng faintly sighed and said, "A person who is despicable is invincible." This sentence is really not wrong. Schemes and machinations can actually make you speak in such a dignified manner, making people feel reverence in their hearts. Hee, your martial arts are truly admirable, admirable. This was obviously sarcastic, even a fool could tell. Bai Mei Daoist's expression became even uglier, and he said in a deep voice, "I treated you guys well, but you guys actually slandered me like this. Then why did your son risk his life to stand together with Hao Tianwang and King Wuling? If it wasn't for him informing us, how could our secret stronghold in the Suicide Valley have been discovered by Hao Tianwang and attacked by him? Tang Zheng questioned. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. Everyone could hear a different kind of deep meaning from these words. Bai Mei Daoist was surprised that Tang Zheng actually saw him risk his life and Hao Tianwang together. How was he going to explain this? However, some people heard another meaning, and that was that they had actually been hiding in the Suicide Valley the entire time. Everyone was no stranger to the Suicide Valley. It was a place even more dangerous than the Savage Land. No one would take the risk and step into the Suicide Valley. However, there were actually people hidden inside. In addition, there were also people who noticed that Hao Tianwang had led his troops to attack the Suicide Valley. This was especially frightening. Hao Tianwang had led his troops to attack. How terrifying was that? This group of people had actually escaped unscathed and even reached the Savage Land. Then how did they do it? Just how strong were they to be able to escape from Hao Tianwang's hands? In the end, some people started to worry. Since they had escaped from Hao Tianwang, wouldn't Hao Tianwang also chase them to the Savage Land? Wouldn't they be in danger as well? All of them looked at each other in dismay, each with their own thoughts. A commotion broke out in the crowd, and the noise was incessant. Tang Zheng looked at Bai Mei Daoist with interest and asked, "How do you explain this?" This voice quickly suppressed the voices of the others. Immediately, there was complete silence as pairs of eyes stared at Bai Mei Daoist. Some people couldn't help but believe in Tang Zheng's words. Bai Mei Daoist saw this and knew that he was in great danger. Thus, he took a deep breath and defended himself. Venomous slander. You said that you saw the sacrifice of life, so you saw it? You want to use this matter to slander me? Dream on. Ask the other Righteous Path people if they agree or not. Many of his trusted aides replied, no. If he dares to slander the Alliance leader, that is slandering the entire Righteous Path Alliance. This kind of person should be killed by everyone. Yes, everyone can't be fooled by his schemes. The trusted aides stirred up the emotions of the other Righteous Path people, and many of them followed suit. They looked at Tang Zheng with unkind gazes. However, Tang Zheng was not worried, and said, "You want evidence, right? There will definitely be evidence. If you have no proof, then take out the evidence." Bai Mei Daoist felt weak in his heart, but he still put on a strong front and said fiercely, "Evidence?" Tang Zheng naturally didn't have any. He pondered for a moment and said, "Give me a bit more time, the evidence will naturally be presented in front of everyone." Bai Mei Daoist was deeply afraid that he would really take out some evidence. Hearing these words, Bai Mei Daoist's heart relaxed, and he laughed in disdain. "Ha ha ha, so there is no evidence at all. You are just spouting nonsense. This kind of person is not welcomed by the Righteous Path. Since you don't insist on leaving, then we can only make you scram." After pausing for a moment, Bai Mei Daoist slowly flew up and floated in the air. His voice was like a large bell, filled with killing intent as he said, "As the Alliance leader of the Righteous Path, I order all the Righteous Path people to expel this person with ulterior motives and his companions. Make them scram out of Manhuang. Manhuang definitely cannot allow this kind of disloyal and ungrateful person to remain in Manhuang." Bai Mei Daoist's words were powerful and resonant, playing the role of a righteous envoy. Under the encouragement of his trusted aides, many of the Righteous Path people were shaken. Although there were some who doubted Bai Mei Daoist, but after all, one was a person who had only known each other for a short period of time, while the other was someone who knew each other very well. Moreover, he was the Alliance leader chosen by all the Righteous Path people, so it went without saying which side they would stand on. Faced with the ultimate choice, the Righteous Path people made their own choice. Pairs of eyes were fixed on Tang Zheng's face. Anger and killing intent gradually surged in their eyes. Tang Zheng had become the target of public criticism. To read the latest novel, please visit Chapter 1680. The good faction had a large number of people, almost all of them had gathered here. Other than the people who had their treasures destroyed by Tang Zheng, there were others who had rushed over after hearing the news. This group of people stared at Tang Zheng covetously, their auras surging. Xiao Bai and the others could no longer sit idly by. They quickly gathered behind Tang Zheng, becoming his solid backing, facing the good faction without fear. Xiao Bai looked at the good faction in ridicule. Raising his voice, he said, "Bullying us with numbers? My master is not alone. If you want to bully him, you have to ask for our permission first." Yi Dingdang and the others responded, "Yes, you have to ask for our permission first." Although they had fewer people, their aura was not weak at all. In fact, they were faintly pressuring the good faction. Kill. The good faction was not to be trifled with. They finally burst out with a heaven-shaking roar. A group of people charging out. Charge. Xiao Bai gave the order, taking the lead. He rushed to the front. The others followed his footsteps, charging at the enemy as fast as lightning. The two forces charged at each other without regard for their own safety. The hard rocks of the wildlands shook as if there was an earthquake. Boom. Both sides finally clashed. The treasures were the first to attack, fighting fiercely, their auras fluctuating like the wind and clouds changing color. Boom, boom, boom. The mountains shook, huge rocks fell from above. This place that the good faction had worked so hard to open up seemed to be in danger of collapsing. Only two people did not move. One was Tang Zheng, the other was Bai Mei Daoist. As if they were not involved, they did not move in between the two torrents. However, the two pairs of eyes looked at each other across the air, as if there was a strong attractive force firmly attracting these two pairs of eyes. Bai Mei Daoist was also at the Grand Ascension stage. During his battle with Tang Zheng, Bai Mei Daoist was only at the second stage of the Grand Ascension stage, and after that incident, he had expended many precious materials to finally break through his shackles and reach the third stage of the Grand Ascension stage. The White Eyebrows Daoist was very pleased with his breakthrough. One had to know that this was almost impossible, but he had done it. Not only that, but his Dharma treasure had also been upgraded. In the past, his horsetail whisk was also a saint artifact, but it had just reached the saint artifact grade. The saint inscriptions on it were messy and did not have a simple sense of beauty. In the fierce battle with Tang Zheng, the horsetail whisk had been greatly damaged. Fortunately, Bai Mei Daoist was also good at refining tools, so he had spent a lot of effort and collected the materials with great difficulty. Because of his breakthrough in cultivation, he had forged a new horsetail whisk. The quality of the horsetail whisk had also been upgraded. The saint inscriptions on it were no longer messy and had been simplified by a lot. The biggest change was that the whisk was no longer white, but blood red, which was very dazzling. A faint smell of blood drifted out from the horsetail whisk. Therefore, after Bai Mei Daoist could not withstand the pressure exerted by Tang Zheng's eyes, the blood-red horsetail whisk appeared in his hand with a swish. Tang Zheng stared at the horsetail whisk, and his pupils shrank slightly as he said meaningfully, "Your horsetail whisk contains too much of the smell of blood. I'm afraid it's not an honorable refining method." Tang Zheng was a master refiner, so he naturally saw the clues at a glance. His voice was not loud, but it accurately entered Bai Mei Daoist's ears. This sentence was particularly harsh, and he could not help but frown. Chasing the wind and moon. Bai Mei Daoist roared, and a dazzling blood-red light shot out from the horsetail whisk. In the blink of an eye, it flew in front of Tang Zheng, and its momentum was particularly fierce. Tang Zheng had experienced this move before. Obviously, it was more powerful than last time, but it was less of a threat to Tang Zheng. Bai Mei Daoist's cultivation had increased by 1 level, but Tang Zheng's cultivation had increased by 3 levels compared to last time. The difference in strength was like heaven and earth. Buzz! The hidden profound sword hummed softly, and the sword light intercepted the blood-red light. A gust of wind fiercely hit the hidden profound sword, but it was immediately shattered by the sharp hidden profound sword. The hidden profound sword flew out from Tang Zheng's hand and stabbed straight at Bai Mei Daoist. Subduing the dragon and tiger. Erase the universe. The horsetail whisk changed attacking moves, and the power suddenly increased. However, Tang Zheng was still very calm, because he had experienced all of these moves before and knew them very well. Therefore, the mysterious hidden sword shot out 2 sword lights in the air, easily breaking through the 2 attacks of the white eyebrows Daoist. Bai Mei Daoist's face turned pale. He could not see through Tang Zheng's cultivation, so he did not know the difference between the two. He thought that after his strength increased, he would not be much weaker than Tang Zheng. However, through these 2 moves, he finally realized that he must have a new attacking move to maybe beat Tang Zheng. He gritted his teeth and smiled coldly. Then I'll let you have a taste of my new move, blood over the world. Puff. The white eyebrows Daoist priest spat out a mouthful of blood onto the horsetail whisk. The blood-red light of the horsetail whisk shone brightly, and an overwhelming smell of blood surged out, like the changing dark clouds in the sky. The smell of blood kept rolling, covering the horsetail whisk. Outsiders could not see it, but the dust of the horsetail whisk was rolling in the smell of blood, stirring up the aura of this space, which made it like a bloody cloud, and attacked Tang Zheng fiercely. Tang Zheng disdainfully curled his lips and said, "Not worth mentioning." The hidden profound sword turned into 2, then 4, and finally thousands of them, and shot into the bloody cloud. Puff. 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 A series of cracking sounds rang out incessantly. Finally, with a boom, the blood-red cloud exploded. Broken strands of dust drifted down like catkins from a willow tree. Bai Mei Daoist spat out another mouthful of blood, and his face became extremely pale. The horsetail whisk returned to his hand, but half of the dust was broken. Tang Zheng walked step by step toward Bai Mei Daoist, and Bai Mei Daoist retreated in panic. In the end, he leaned against the wall, and retired from the army. The hidden profound sword approached step by step, and the sharp sword light shone on Bai Mei Daoist's face. Bai Mei Daoist's pale face became more and more clear. Bai Mei Daoist was defeated. Although it was only a short time, he was defeated, and thoroughly defeated, even more than last time. He could not understand why he was defeated so miserably, even though his cultivation had increased. He clenched his teeth, and the voice of hatred squeezed out from between his teeth. He asked, "Why are you so powerful?" Tang Zheng smiled faintly. "You are improving, and so am I. Moreover, the speed of my improvement is far from what you can compare to." This sentence was like a heavy hammer, fiercely pounding on his chest. He choked a mouthful of blood in his throat, and almost died. But he did not give up. His eyes emitted a vicious light, and the horsetail whisk was thrust into the ground, as if cutting tofu, easily inserted into the hard rock ground. Bai Mei Daoist shouted himself hoarse, as if using all the strength in his body, and roared, "Big Dipper 6 directions formation." Bang! 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 A series of loud noises came from the room behind him. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1681. With a loud sound, several tall figures broke through the wall and appeared in front of everyone. Tang Zheng immediately locked onto these people and revealed an astonished expression. This was because he saw a problem with this group of people. These people actually had no vitality, as if they were walking corpses. This made Tang Zheng involuntarily recall the puppet technique. Back then, Huang Xiang was also like this. Puppets. Tang Zheng said in a deep voice, not understanding Bai Mei Daoist's plan. Hearing the word puppets, Bai Mei Daoist was not surprised. He sternly stared at Tang Zheng and growled, "Big Dipper 6 directions formation." Tang Zheng's brows jumped. He had seen the power of this formation before. Bai Mei Daoist was using the same trick again. Did he think that the Big Dipper 6 directions formation could defeat him? The puppets were already standing in a special position. They all raised their hands and rays of light shot out from their hands, gathering together in midair. An aura of death permeated the air, instantly enveloping this space. Tang Zhang's expression became serious. Bai Mei Daoist, as the Righteous Alliance leader, you keep saying that you adhere to the Righteous Path's principles, but does your Big Dipper 6 Directions formation meet the Righteous Path standards? Bai Mei Daoist coldly snorted and avoided answering. He only said with a murderous aura, to kill traitors like you, I must use thunderous methods. Huh, what a thunderous method. Then let's see whose method is better. Tang Zheng did not waste words with him and directly used strength to speak. It would not be too late to talk after defeating him. The Big Dipper 6 Directions formation was already prepared. The puppet's energy was completely drawn out and gathered in midair, forming a ball of light. However, this ball of light was completely red and emitted an aura of death. Whoosh! The ball of light flew to the top of Daoist White Brow's head, and rushed into his body as if he had been enlightened. In the next second, Bai Mei Daoist's body trembled as he bathed in the red light. His entire body turned blood red, and his eyes flickered with a bewitching red light. The horsetail whisk let out a sharp sound, and the blood-red strands of the whisk expanded in the wind. Soon, they were several meters long, like slender whips. Whoosh! The long whip swam, flying towards Tang Zheng, thousands and thousands of threads, continuous and unending. Hidden mystic sword, slash! Tang Zheng roared, and the hidden sword flew out like a bolt of lightning, slashing at the threads of dust. However, the threads of dust did not break, as if they were extremely tough and bounced back. Wang! The hidden mystic sword quickly rebounded. This attack had no effect. Tang Zheng was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Bai Mei Daoist's attack to be so strong. The drifting strands of dust gave him a strange feeling. Bai Mei Daoist laughed complacently, as if victory was already in his grasp. Everyone else saw this scene. The road had turned around, and it was completely different from before. No one expected that Bai Mei Daoist, who had suffered a crushing defeat, would be so powerful again. However, everyone's attention was not limited to this. Many people looked at the puppets in horror and cried out, Alliance leader, what did you do to them? Obviously, they were more concerned about the puppets than Bai Mei Daoist. It turned out that those puppets were the best of the best from each sect. They had profound strength and were highly respected. Most of them were protectors and elders of the sect. Back then, Bai Mei Daoist used his identity as the alliance leader to gather these people to form the Heavenly Dipper 6 Directions formation. This was to gather the strength of the strong and then become stronger. This was equivalent to gathering the top power of each sect. Its power was indeed extraordinary, and it killed many enemies. But now, these people had become puppets. This was a scene that the people of these sects did not want to see. Their own sect's elders and protectors had been turned into puppets. Who could accept this cruel reality? Someone came to a realization and roared angrily, Bai Mei Daoist, explain clearly, what's going on? Yes, how did our elders become puppets? Who turned our protectors into puppets? Angry voices drowned out the sounds of the battle. Many sects even retreated, giving up on the fierce battle with their opponents. For a moment, the battle was not as intense as before. Apart from Bai Mei Daoist's trusted aides and some stubborn fellows, everyone else had given up on fighting. Their eyes were firmly locked on Bai Mei Daoist. Without these people restraining them, how could Bai Mei Daoist's trusted aides be a match for the ancestor and the others? The battle was quickly decided. This group of people was controlled and couldn't move. They could only watch helplessly as their opponent attacked them. Xiao Bai walked in a circle in front of them and jokingly said, "You people are really stubborn. If you walk down a dark path, then you will be the leader of your alliance. Look at his actions. What's the difference between him and the demons? Is it worth it for you to use your lives to protect him?" Bai Mei Daoist's hair was disheveled and his entire body was shrouded in red light. He looked like a devil, completely different from his previous transcendent appearance. Bai Mei Daoist, you still haven't answered our question. Why are you so deranged as to turn them into puppets? Seeing that Bai Mei Daoist still hadn't answered, some people couldn't hold back and loudly questioned him. The art of puppetry was also a spell of the righteous Tao, but the people who were turned into puppets were all vicious and evil people, not people who should be on their side. Bai Mei Daoist's actions had violated a great taboo. Bai Mei Daoist naturally heard these questions. In order to protect his position, he had taken such a great risk and turned his former allies into puppets. This was even crueler than killing them. Xiao Bai jokingly said, "If you don't answer, then you clearly have a guilty conscience. For the sake of your own selfish desires, you actually killed your allies. Is this still the alliance leader you want?" There was complete silence, and quite a few people lowered their heads. Those trusted aides also seemed to have lost their souls and didn't dare to jump around. Xiao Bai continued, "As the alliance leader, Bai Mei Daoist committed such a heinous crime. Thus, he is the true traitor of the righteous Tao and everyone's enemy. Now, my master will seek justice for everyone and take down this traitor and public enemy." Wild Dog had been on Tang Zheng's side from the beginning and had even switched sides and fought fiercely with the righteous Tao for a long time. He looked worriedly at the unpredictable Big Dipper's 6 directions true formation and said, "Bai Mei Daoist has used the art of puppetry. The Big Dipper's 6 directions true formation has changed and is extremely dangerous." Xiao Bai waved his hand and said carelessly, "So what if he's powerful? He's still no match for my master. If you don't believe me, just wait and see." Xiao Bai was also very clear that Tang Jing needed to establish his might in front of the righteous Tao. Bai Mei Daoist had given him this opportunity. If he didn't make good use of it, wouldn't it be a waste? The others were skeptical. After all, they hadn't fully experienced Tang Zheng's strength. Looking at the completely different Bai Mei Daoist now, many people were uncertain. Chapter 1682. The white eyebrows Daoist was shrouded in a red light as he fiercely attacked Tang Zheng. Tens of thousands of strands of dust flew towards Tang Zheng like poisonous snakes spitting out their tongues. Hidden sword, cut. Tang Zheng did not use any powerful moves at all. He just roared and slashed out with his sword. Bai Mei Daoist disdainfully raised the corner of his mouth. The horsetail whisk was incomparably tough. How could it be cut so easily? Wasn't that the best proof? He concentrated all his power and poured it into the horsetail whisk. Every whisker had a terrifying lethality. The overwhelming aura of death surged out with great momentum. The sharp sword light of the hidden sword finally fell on the whiskers. Clang! However, the scene from before did not occur. The tenacious strands of hair could not stop the hidden sword of Xian. Like crushing dry weeds, they all broke apart amidst the crisp sound. The hidden sword went straight in, as fast as lightning. Before Bai Mei Daoist could react, it was already at his forehead. Bai Mei Daoist was defeated. He was completely defeated. Bai Mei Daoist's eyes showed a look of disbelief. He could not understand how he was defeated like this. He tried to resist again, but the terrifying aura of the hidden sword dispelled his idea. He was sure that as long as he made the slightest move, the hidden sword could directly penetrate his forehead and kill him on the spot. He twisted his neck with difficulty and stared at Tang Zheng, who was not far away. He asked in horror, "How could this be?" Tang Zheng knew what the other party wanted to ask. He smiled faintly and said, "A mere 3rd stage of the Mahayana stage dares to compete with me, a 7th stage of the Mahayana stage. I just wanted to see how many tricks you have. I didn't want to kill you immediately. I didn't expect you to have the illusion that you can defeat me. I don't know where your confidence comes from." Tang Zheng's voice was very harsh. It was as if he could hear the sound of Bai Mei Daoist's heart breaking. He completely destroyed the fluke and the line of defense in his heart. When the others heard the word 7th stage of the Mahayana stage, they all showed a look of horror. They scratched their heads and did not expect Tang Zheng's cultivation to be so strong. One by one, the people who originally provoked Tang Zheng shrank their necks. They felt a chill on their backs. They thought that they were lucky. They had just walked through the gates of hell and did not know it. With Tang Zheng's cultivation, their provocation was child's play. If he insisted on attacking, most of them would have no chance to resist and then quietly reach the end of their lives. However, Tang Zheng did not do so and only destroyed their magical equipment. This was already showing mercy. Her original resentment towards Tang Zheng for destroying her magical equipment disappeared like smoke in thin air, leaving only the feeling of surviving a calamity in her heart. Tang Zheng ignored the others. He just stared at Bai Mei Daoist and said, "Your methods are really powerful. You killed your allies. Do you still have the qualifications to sit in the position of the Righteous Alliance leader?" Bai Mei Daoist stubbornly raised his head. He was not ashamed. Instead, he said proudly, "This is my method. How can it be your turn to criticize? Moreover, if you didn't force me step by step, why would I take such a risk?" Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. "Could it be that you have angered everyone and done such a heinous thing is my fault?" Bai Mei Daoist said without hesitation, "Of course. Without your threat, why would I do this? Everyone, think about it from my point of view. If it was you, wouldn't you do the same?" Bai Mei Daoist angrily glared. His gaze swept over everyone. Many people lowered their heads in shame. It seemed that they really had the same thoughts as him. But most people still angrily glared at him. They were not fooled by his words. Bai Mei Daoist, not only are your methods despicable, you are also good at talking. We are all people with a bottom line. Even in the face of danger, we will not harm our allies. Tang Zheng hit the nail on the head. Many people agreed and said with a common hatred, "Yes, we will not be as cruel as you. Bai Mei Daoist, you are not fit to be the Righteous Alliance leader. You have shamed the entire righteous path. You are the true traitor of the righteous path. Bai Mei Daoist, you are the traitor. You have shamed the righteous path." Accusations rang out in unison. A bunch of hypocrites. Bai Mei Daoist spat out a mouthful of saliva and said disdainfully, "You have an excuse for this matter and think that I am a threat to you. What about the other matter? You sent your son to inform Hao Tianwang and then asked him to lead an army to attack Suicide Valley. What is this act of helping the tyrant?" Tang Zheng asked. The others fell into deep thought when they heard this. Previously, they did not believe these words, but at this moment, they gradually began to believe them. Bai Mei Daoist's expression kept changing. He made a final struggle and said, "I didn't send my son to inform you. You are framing me." Tang Zheng's heart trembled. Bai Mei Daoist was truly a smart person. Even now, he had not completely lost his mind. He did not admit to this matter because he knew very well that this matter could not be compared to the matter of the puppet. If the matter of him colluding with Hao Tianwang was confirmed, then he really would not have a chance to turn the situation around, nor would he have any excuse. Then he would really have no way out. Furthermore, he knew that if Tang Zheng could not produce any concrete evidence, he could deny it. At the very least, no one else would have anything to say. He was walking on a tightrope, gambling on the last bit of luck. You won't cry until you see the coffin. Bai Mei Daoist, your wishful thinking is wrong. Tang Zheng sneered. Bai Mei Daoist looked at Tang Zheng mockingly. He had made up his mind that he did not have any concrete evidence, so he was fearless. Tang Zheng's gaze drifted into the distance. With a move of his divine sense, he sensed a few familiar auras. With a thought, he came up with an idea and said, "Bai Mei Daoist, didn't you say that I don't have any evidence? Actually, the evidence is very simple. The evidence is your son, Xiren." Bai Mei Daoist thought that Xiren was definitely with Hao Tianwang. No matter how powerful Tang Zheng was, it was impossible for him to snatch Xiren from Hao Tianwang. Thus, Bai Mei Daoist disdainfully said, "Everything depends on your mouth. The key is the evidence. You said that my son is the evidence, then you should find him. Bai Mei Daoist was certain that Tang Jing could not find his son, Sharon, so he was fearless and incomparably arrogant. The corner of his mouth hooked up in a ridiculing smile that was particularly dazzling. Tang Jing smiled faintly and said, "Naturally, I will find him. However, if he really stands in front of you, I'm afraid you'll be shocked. However, at that time, you won't have any excuses." Bai Mei Daoist obviously did not believe him and sneered. Tang Zheng's gaze drifted into the distance. 3 figures flew in from the entrance of the wildland's underground space. When Tang Zheng saw one of them clearly, his eyes lit up and the smile on the corner of his mouth became more and more intense. Everyone looked at Tang Zheng, and when they saw the change in his expression, they were confused. Many of the smart people followed his gaze, and when they saw the scene at the entrance, all of them trembled and turned pale with fright. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1683. The 3 figures finally approached. There were actually 2 people escorting a person. When everyone saw the face of the person being escorted, they all revealed expressions of disbelief. Bai Mei Daoist also saw this person, and his face instantly turned ashen. His mouth was wide open, and he looked extremely terrified. "Lifesaver!" The crowd cried out in alarm. The person being escorted was actually Bai Mei Daoist's son, Lifesaver. Wasn't that the so-called evidence that Tang Zheng was talking about? Bai Mei Daoist swore that it was impossible for Tang Zheng to find Lifesaver, but he didn't expect to be slapped in the face in the blink of an eye. A smile surfaced on the corner of Tang Zheng's mouth, and he looked at the 2 people beside him with praise in his eyes. These 2 people were Yi Yuan and Bewildering Mist. Tang Zheng had long wanted to deal with Bai Mei Daoist, but he knew that Bai Mei Daoist's position was not ordinary, and that if he wanted to shake him, he would need real evidence. And the only evidence was to sacrifice his life. Thus, he sent out Yi Yuan and Bewildering Mist, ignoring the danger, to guard the outskirts of the savage wasteland, waiting for the rabbit. This was because they believed that in the Battle of the Suicide Valley, Hao Tianwang would definitely not let him have an easy time. He would definitely escape back to the savage wasteland without stopping, so he would take the opportunity to capture him. Wouldn't that mean that he would have ready-made evidence? Tang Zheng's prediction was godly. Yi Yuan and Bewildering Mist were indeed waiting for Lifesaver at the edge of the savage wasteland. After a bitter battle, how could Lifesaver be a match for the 2 of them? He could only be captured. Tang Zheng's heart was set. He stared at Bai Mei Daoist aggressively, and asked, "Bai Mei Daoist, didn't you say that I didn't have any evidence? Now that the evidence is right in front of you, what else do you have to say?" Bai Mei Daoist clenched his teeth and remained silent. It seemed that he could not find a suitable excuse. Everyone looked at Bai Mei Daoist in unison. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Bai Mei Daoist's expression changed again and again. He glared hatefully at Guming. The feeling of being slapped in the face by his own son was really unpleasant. Someone from the righteous faction was furious and questioned, "Bai Mei Daoist, do you have anything else to say?" "That's right. Hurry up and tell me what's going on." Bai Mei Daoist racked his brains, but there was nothing he could do. Tang Zheng knew that Bai Mei Daoist hadn't really admitted defeat yet. He was still making a last-ditch struggle. Thus, he walked in front of Guming and said, "Bai Mei Daoist, since you don't want to speak, let's listen to what your son has to say." Yi Yuan nodded towards Tang Zheng, pushed Guming, and urged, "Obediently tell us everything you've done, and let everyone know of your despicable actions." Guming's lips trembled slightly as he looked at Bai Mei Daoist in fear. He seemed to be extremely afraid, but he quickly lowered his head, not daring to look at him. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he finally opened his mouth and said slowly, "I was ordered by my father to inform Hao Tianwang and let them attack the Suicide Valley." His words were concise and to the point, but it was like a sharp arrow that pierced into Bai Mei Daoist's heart. Bai Mei Daoist was stunned. He never thought that he would be betrayed by his son, risking his life to reveal all the inside information so neatly. Unfilial son. Bai Mei Daoist's anger accumulated in his chest, and he let out a loud roar that sounded like a thunderclap. Guming bent down in shame, as if he was about to sink into the dust, not daring to face his father. He silently said in his heart, "Father, don't blame me. If I don't tell the truth, then I'm dead for sure." Yi Yuan had warned him earlier that if he didn't reveal the truth, he would die without a doubt. Before he lost his life, he did not know the immensity of the heavens and the earth. He still had the thought of competing with Tang Zheng, but ever since he witnessed the battle of the Suicide Valley with his own eyes, this thought disappeared into thin air. He no longer dared to have such thoughts, because Tang Zheng was too strong, so strong that his heart was like dead ashes. He understood that even with his father, he had no hope of winning. He might as well tell the truth and admit everything in exchange for his life. He also knew that this would cause a fatal blow to his father, but in order to survive, he couldn't care less. In the face of great calamity, everyone flew separately. This was the cruel reality. Bai Mei Daoist stared hatefully at Guming. How could he not understand his intentions? He angrily cursed, unfilial son, but everything was to no avail. Everyone sighed in their hearts. Bai Mei Daoist's methods were impressive, but they never thought that he would have such a disappointing son. This was the outcome of Bai Mei Daoist. Many people felt a sense of satisfaction as if they had gotten their revenge. Bai Mei Daoist, you finally have nothing to say now, right? As the leader of the righteous path, you have commanded so many righteous paths, but I never thought that you would actually collude with Hao Tianwang and inform him. You are the true traitor of the righteous path. The crowd was furious, and someone vehemently criticized him. Yes, you are the biggest traitor. You have actually hidden for so long. Today, you have finally been exposed in front of everyone. Obediently surrender and accept your punishment. Alliance leader has become a traitor, so he should be punished even more. What should he do? Death. Echoing one another, the righteous path that had long been drowned in anger condemned Bai Mei Daoist. When the word death came out, Bai Mei Daoist was not surprised at all. Because, he had long been clear that once his evil intentions were exposed, he would definitely be punished with death. There was no other possibility. It was precisely because of this that he had been quibbling all this time. He would not shed tears until he saw the coffin. He slowly raised his head, his eyes filled with killing intent. An aura of death spread out from his body. He gnashed his teeth and hysterically said, "I am the leader of the righteous path. What qualifications do you have to sentence me to death? Only I can judge the crimes of others, no one can sentence me to death. You all stand on Tang Zheng's side and intend to kill me. Then I will kill you all first." As soon as his voice fell, an intense killing intent spread out and enveloped the nearest righteous path people. How could these people's strength be Bai Mei Daoist's opponent? They immediately bled from their 7 orifices and fell to the ground dead. The others were all enraged. Bai Mei Daoist, even at death's door you still dare to be so cruel. Kill him. Kill him. The crowd was enraged. Waves of shouts swept out like a tide, and the momentum was tremendous. Bai Mei Daoist also roared, "Kill!" Those puppets moved. They quickly attacked the surrounding righteous path people. Many of them were from their sects when they were alive. Several righteous path people did not even have time to react before they received a fatal blow and died on the spot. Everyone was stunned. Cries of alarm sounded out. Bai Mei Daoist, you are too despicable. You actually ordered them to kill each other. Bai Mei Daoist not only refined these people into puppets, he also ordered them to kill their former sect members. This was even more despicable than refining them into puppets. Bai Mei Daoist coldly snorted and said, "You all betrayed the alliance leader. That is not the righteous path. What wrong is there in killing you all? He has already turned into a demon. Everyone, do not be merciful. Kill this thief with your own hands and take revenge for our dead sect members." Everyone loudly shouted. "Kill this thief with your own hands." Shouts filled with righteous indignation resounded through the clouds. To read a novel, please visit You're tuning into the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.